Dr. Danfield. The human mind is like a cave. Beyond the light, there are dark passageways and mysterious recesses. I, Dr. Daniel Danfield, have explored those unknown retreats and know their secrets. Dr. Daniel Danfield, authority on crime psychology, has an unhappy faculty for getting himself mixed up in hazardous predicaments because of his astonishing revelations regarding the workings of the criminal mind. As our story opens, we find Dr. Danfield in his office dictating to his pretty young secretary, Rusty Fairfax. Period, paragraph. And the facts that I'm about to relate will definitely prove my theory that even seasoned criminals are often influenced by outside agencies. The opening incident took place in an abandoned warehouse some few weeks ago. A man and a woman were target practicing with a pistol.
Okay, Nick, wait a minute. I'll take a look at the target.
Huh. How am I doing?
You're doing all right, Nicky boy. You're doing all right. 8 bullseyes out of 10 shots.
Yeah? Not bad, huh, Trixie?
Not bad at all, Nick. Well, I figured you'd get better with a little practice. Guess we can handle that bank job anytime now.
Why, sure. Bank job?
Yeah, the First National Trust. Remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Look, Trixie, let's forget the bank job, huh? Well, look, I got an in on the numbers racket with Bugs Flambeau.
Flambeau, that small-time punk.
Okay, then we'll get into something else. Banks is out of my line, Trixie.
Well, they're going to be in your line from now on, big boy. Now get that and get it straight.
Oh, listen, Trixie.
You listen, you two-timing lug. Trixie Talbot, don't waste your time on nobody and then let him walk out on us, see? Nobody.
Okay, Trixie, okay.
You're tied up with me so that I get you out of the small time. Okay. So I went to work and I begun teaching you the angles. All right. So now we're ready to move and you ain't welching, see?
Yeah, but you didn't say nothing about a bank job.
Didn't I? Well, I'm saying it now. It's the First National Trust tomorrow at noon. Or do you still want to go back to the numbers racket?
No, Trixie, you wouldn't.
Wouldn't I, Nicky boy? I guess you don't know Trixie Talbot. I guess maybe you forgot how straight she can shoot. Let me show you something, Nicky boy. You see what I mean, Nicky boy?
Yeah, I see. Both of them right in the bullseye. Oh, you're good, all right, Trixie.
You're darned right I'm good. I got a reputation and I'm keeping it. Nobody ain't going to say they walked out on Trixie Talbot. You can't afford to have that kind of talk going around.
Oh, yeah, I get it, Trixie. You got a reputation to think of.
I like you, Nicky boy. I figured you were smart. I figured we could go places together. That's why I let you come in with me.
Sure, Trixie. You give me a chance, all right. I ain't forgetting it.
Come here, Nicky boy.
Yeah. Trixie?
Put your arms around me.
Yeah.
Now, you see what I mean, Nicky boy?
Yeah. You're all right, Trixie. Gee, I'm crazy about you.
That's better. We'll get along, big boy.
Oh, sure, Trixie. We'll get along all right.
Tomorrow at noon, we begin moving in on the big time. We start going places, you and me. Tomorrow at noon. Yeah? This is it, Nick.
Yeah.
All set?
Sure. I'm all set. Let's get going.
Take it easy, big boy. Don't get nervous. Remember what you're supposed to do?
Yeah. We've been over it enough times. What are we waiting for?
All right, Nicky boy, relax now. Hold the bank book in your left hand like you was going to make a deposit. Keep the other hand on the heat in your pocket.
Yeah, I know. Come on.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, it's cops.
Shut up. That guy'd fall over and have fainted. He thought there was going to be a stick-up. Well, here we are, dear. Give the man your book.
Yeah. Okay, pal. This is a stick-up. Don't move or you'll get it.
Yes, sir. What do you want?
What do you think we want, chump? Shove that full green stuff this way.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now get into the vault and bring out everything you can carry.
No, forget that, Trixie. We got all
Shut
this.
up. Go on, you.
Yes, sir.
And don't forget there's a gun pointing in your back.
Trixie, look. The cop.
Forget the cop. I said he ain't
All
gonna...
right, you two. Drop those guns.
Why, you dumb flat.
Trixie, don't! Trixie, you shouldn't
Shut up. Come on, let's get out of here. I need some fun. Let him have it, Dick. No, we say like
In a moment, we'll return for the second act of Danger, Dr. Danfield. But first... And now for the second act of... Danger, Dr. Danfield.
Well, that's the story of the holdup, Doc. You got any ideas so far?
Indeed I have, Captain Otis. First of all, if this bank robber was a seasoned criminal, you should have no difficulty in establishing his identity.
That's the point entirely. We've got files and records on every daylight bank robber in the country. This pair didn't follow the customary pattern at all. That's why we thought you might be interested.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Miss Fairfax?
I think you're sticking your chin out if you want to know. Captain Otis has got something else in mind besides asking your advice on the workings of the criminal mind.
Miss Fairfax, such blunt frankness at a time like this...
Blame the young lady, Doc. As a matter of fact, she's right. I've got something else in mind. You want to hear it?
By all means, Captain Otis.
Good. For more than a week, my boys have been bringing in and questioning every known hold-up man in the city. So far, they haven't got the first base. The way I see it, they've been looking in the wrong places for the wrong kind of a guy.
That's a logical deduction, Captain.
Yesterday, a young trooper, Sidney Richards, in an upstate town, noticed smoke coming from what he supposed was an abandoned house. Went up to investigate and hasn't been heard from since.
Wait a minute. If he hasn't been heard from since, how do you know he saw smoke? And how do you know he went up to investigate?
It's logical that what happened, Miss Fairfax, that's what happened. We found the tire marks of his motorbike going up the lane that leads into the house, but none returning.
So you assume that whoever was living in the house prevented young Richards from returning?
That's exactly what we think, Doc.
Well, why don't you go up there and find out, for heaven's sake?
For a very definite reason, Miss Fairfax. Suppose the people who are living in the house are our bank robbers. Suppose they've taken Trooper Richards prisoner and holding him hostage.
Suppose they are. They can't hold him forever. What are you going to do, just sit around and
Miss
wait?
Fairfax, may I make a suggestion?
Sure, Dan, go ahead.
Stop asking so many questions. Let Captain Otis finish his story.
All right.
The life of one state trooper, Miss Fairfax, is worth the lives of a dozen criminals. We have a plan whereby we can keep young Richards alive.
Go on, Captain.
2 days ago, the Boston police captured one of the most ruthless killers this country has ever known. You've probably heard of him. He's called the Professor.
The professor?
Yes, a very unusual type. For years, I've hoped for the chance to study him.
Doc, we're going to give you that chance. The Professor is being held incommunicado by the Boston police. We want you to go up there and look him over.
Splendid. I'll leave at once.
Just a minute, Doc. That's only half the deal.
Here it comes.
Assuming that the people in the abandoned house are our bank robbers and that they're holding Trooper Richards as hostage, there's only one person who could get to them without arousing their suspicions.
I think I'm beginning to understand, Captain. You want me to assume the identity of the Professor and make a call on your fugitives.
That's it, Doc. You kind of look like the Professor. He's a smooth-acting gent, and so are you.
No, don't do it, Dan.
Miss Fairfax, please. There'll be no danger.
No danger. You know what you're saying? The first thing those two are going to ask is, how did you know they were hiding in that house?
We're prepared for that, Miss Fairfax. 2 days from now, there'll be a daring daylight holdup in the neighboring town of Bolton. The crime will be attributed to the Professor.
The professor, but you said that he
The
was...
crime will merely be attributed to the Professor. Newspapers and radio broadcasts will attest to that fact.
Excellent. It'll only be natural for the Professor to take refuge in the abandoned house.
That's it, Doc. Those two fugitives did. Why not the Professor?
I still say it's crazy. What if the fugitives had met the professor before? What if...
It isn't likely that any small-time operators would know a big shot like the Professor by sight. he'd be careful not to let them.
Quite right, Captain. Besides, this will give me a splendid opportunity to study some unusual types at close hand.
Dan, you can't go.
Nonsense, Miss Fairfax. A man's life is at stake.
Yours will be, too, if you're sucker enough to agree to this plan. Anyway, your birds will probably have flown by the time you get there.
There's not a chance of that. The house is being watched day and night.
So you see, Miss Fairfax, it's quite safe.
It isn't. You'll be murdered. I know you will.
And if I don't go, Trooper Richards will be murdered.
Well, then I'm going, too.
Of course you're not going.
I am. I'm going to call
Miss
Mario.
Fairfax, try and be reasonable for a change. Mario's on his vacation, you know that. Anyway, the plan wouldn't work if three of us attempted to take refuge in the abandoned house. Come along, Captain. We'll catch the first plane to Boston.
Dan, come back here. Oh, that crazy idiot. Hello, operator. I want Western Union. Western Union? I want to send a telegram to Mario Consoletti.
Hi, Nick boy. Come on in. How's Trooper Richards this morning?
Okay, I guess. Look, Trixie, we have to keep the guy tied up all the time.
Do we have to keep him tied up? Oh, Nicky, boy, sometimes I think you got softening of the brain.
Okay, maybe I have. Maybe having to stay here cooped up in this lousy dump is driving me nuts. Maybe
Shut up.
No, I want to get out of here. I was a sucker to listen to you in the first place.
You got anything else to say, Nicky, boy?
Don't, Trixie. Put the gun away.
Yeah, I'll put it away. But one more crack out of you, chum, and the next time I don't miss.
Okay, Trixie, okay. You don't need to worry about me.
I better not need to worry about you, you dumb punk. If it weren't for me, you'd be cooling your shins in a cell right now.
Yeah, I know it, Trixie. You're right. Forget I said anything, will you?
You better crawl, you little weasel. This is a thanks I get for putting you in the big time.
Yeah. But if we could only get out of here.
We'll get out of here when the heat's off. Not until.
Suppose they find us.
Oh, don't be a dope. I've had this hideout case for weeks. Nobody will find us here.
Yeah? The motor cop did.
All right, so the motor cop found us. Why? Because you were dumb enough to light a fire. Why, just for that, I ought to shoot your ears off, you.
Oh, forget it, will you? I already admitted it was my fault, didn't I?
Yeah, that's a big help admitting it. How do I know you will pull some other dumb trick?
I won't, Trixie, so help me.
You better not.
But how long do we have to stay here anyway?
Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Depends on how things look.
2 more days? Look, Trixie, that cop's going to be missed. They're going to come looking for him.
Madam, we're in the driver's seat, no matter which way you figure it. Anybody comes here looking for that cop, we'll make a deal with him.
You mean?
Yeah, I mean. What do you suppose we've been keeping him alive for? Now quit asking so many questions. He ain't got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. I guess you're right, Trixie. If they was looking for the cop, we'd have heard it on the radio.
Sure we would. The battery's brand new. Turn it on. Let's have some music.
Sure. Okay, Trixie. I'll turn it on.
And it has now become definitely established that the lone bandit who shot and killed the paymaster of Robert's lumber mill was the gangster known as the Professor. State police are making an intensive search of the countryside near Bolton.
Well, how do you like that? The professor's operating again, and in Bolton, too.
The professor? I thought he was laying low after the Chicago job.
Well, looks like he got tired of laying low, Nicky boy. Oh, them dumb cops. Thinking they can catch the professor. Oh, Nicky boy, there's a character I'd like to meet. Him and me could go places together. Yes, sir, there's a guy who's got what it takes.
You ain't never met him, Trixie?
Of course I ain't. There's few that have. He's a smart operator, that lad. You ought to study the professor's technique. Maybe it'll get someplace.
Oh, Trixie, ain't I doing all right?
That's Professor. Yes, sir. He and me could go places together.
Yes, Trixie. Hey, what's this?
It's an automobile.
Look, it's coming up the lane. It's the cops. I knew
Shut
they...
up.
Don't get us. We ain't got a chance.
Oh, shut up, I say, you dumb cluck. That ain't no cop.
What do you mean it ain't no cop?
Because there's only one of them. You think a cop would come driving up here in broad daylight like that? Some punk has lost his way, or maybe wants a drink of water or something.
Oh, what are we going to do? If he sees that trooper...
He won't see no trooper. Go and open the door.
What are we going to do? What do you got your gun out for?
Never mind. Go on and do as I say.
Trixie, you ain't gonna...
Hey, die. Nicky, boy, you got a lot to learn in this business. You might just as well begin now. Open the door.
No, Trixie, look, I'll talk to him. Maybe I can turn him away.
You punk. You do like I say, or do I blast you too?
Okay. Okay, Trixie. I'll open it.
Just a moment. We'll return to the third act of Danger Dr. Danfield. But first... And now for the third act of... Danger Dr. Danfield.
Punk. You do like I say, or do I blast you too?
Oh, okay. Okay, Trixie. I'll open it. Yeah? What do you want?
Well, for a moment you rather startled me. I thought there was no one at home.
What do you want?
I was wondering if I could use your telephone. You see, I'm
Tell
lost...
him to come in.
Come on in.
Thank you. Oh, I beg your pardon. I didn't know there was a lady here.
You guessed right, there ain't. Okay. Who sent you?
Sent me? I don't believe I understand. You see, I was on my way.
Come on, quit stalling. Before I knock you off, I want the answer to a few questions.
Knock me off? You mean you intend shooting me with that gun?
You catch on fast, copper.
Copper? My dear young lady, are you referring to me as a police officer?
Buster, you sure put on a smooth act. Hey, Nick,
Yeah, Trixie?
see what he's got in that bag.
Okay, give me the bag, bud.
But look here.
Give me the bag.
Very well. Here you are, my man.
All right.
What's in it, Nick?
Jeepers.
Well, what is it?
What is it? Take a look.
Well, I'm a greenback. Bundles of them.
Oh, God, there isn't so much there. I like to call that my small change purse.
Small change. Say, who are you anyway?
Trixie. I know. That radio broadcast.
Wait a minute. Let me look this lug over.
The radio broadcast give a detailed description of the Professor Trixie.
How did you know my name?
My dear girl, your associate here called you Trixie at least 3 times since I entered the house.
Oh, he did.
Yes, and he referred to, rather you referred to him as Nick. Trixie and Nick. Could it be... But no. Trixie Talbot would never allow herself to become involved with, Oh, forgive me, I've said too much.
You ain't said nothing. What's the matter with Trixie Talbot?
There's nothing wrong with Trixie Talbot.
Oh, I get it. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, Trixie?
You go on outside and take a look around.
Oh, but look, ain't I
Go on, quit arguing.
Okay, Trixie, you don't have to get sore.
Well, that's better. Now, shall I finish what I was about to say, Trixie?
You don't need to, I know. So you're him, huh? You're the professor.
At your service, my dear.
I like that. At your service, he says. Yes, sir, Professor, you're just like they said. A real gentleman.
Thank you, my dear.
Sit down, Professor. Over here. We got a lot to talk about. Yes, sir. We got to get acquainted.
Can't you drive a little faster, Mario? Dr. Danfield may be dead by now.
No, not the doc. He's a very funny fellow, the doc. Sometimes I think maybe he never died.
Maybe it's funny to you, but it isn't to me. Dr. Danfield's in danger, and we've got to save him.
Save him? I think maybe the doc is going to save us before we get through.
Oh, stop that laughing. I'm worried.
You don't want to see the doctor get hurt, Senorina Rossi, eh?
Of course I don't.
Hey, you know, I think you very much in the love.
I don't know.
You don't know? That's very funny. Always the girl she don't know. Not the much she don't know.
Well, maybe I am a little.
Sure, just a little. Look here, Signorina Rossi.
A girl is gonna love a little. Either she loves all over herself or she don't love at all. Mario knows all about it.
Mario knows too much. Were you ever in love, Mario?
Was Mario ever in love, Senorina? You should ask me that.
Well, were you?
Senorina, you should be ashamed. Look, how you think I get all these scars on my face? How you think I can give you such a good advice, huh? How you think I'm so happy all the time, Senorina? Mario in love. Mario's in love all the time.
With the same girl?
Was it the same girl? Oh, no. That's a different. You didn't ask me that. What for I gotta be in love with the same girl? That's no fun.
Mario, you're priceless.
Well, sure, I did. What do you mean by that, the priceless? You think Mario worth no price, eh?
Oh, on the contrary, Mario. Mario, look.
What's the matter now?
That house up there. That's the one, I'm sure of it.
What makes you so sure?
Didn't I hear Captain Otis describe it to Dr. Danfield?
Yeah, but how you so sure?
Well, look. That car parked in front. That's Dr. Danfield.
The car... Hey, that's right. That's the doctor's automobile, all right. Come on. We'll go up in the seat, eh?
Oh, no. We don't want to do that. They'll hear us and be ready.
Then what do you think we're going to do, Signorina Rossi?
Let's park our car in the bushes here and sneak up.
Sneak up? That's a very good idea, Mr. Rossi. We sneak up just like the Indian red man, eh? Some fun, eh, Mr. Rossi?
Professor, I gotta hand it to you. Yes, sir, I gotta hand it to you. You done all right for yourself.
You're very flattering, Trixie. And now about the proposition you mentioned a little while ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the proposition. Professor, how much dough's in that small change purse of yours?
Oh, possibly 10 G's.
Just like that, huh? 10 G's and you don't bat an eye. Professor, you kill me. Now, look. You see that bag sticking out from under the couch?
Not unlike my own.
It's just like it. What's in it's just like what's in yours, too. Only there's more.
More?
Yeah. There's more than 15 grand in that satchel, Professor.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'm saying it. You add that 15 with the 10 you got, makes a pretty good stake. Doesn't it, Professor?
Indeed it does. Yes. Yes, a very good stake, Trixie.
You get it, Professor? We start out with 25 grand, see? You and me together. We take it from there together.
But look here, Trixie, since I have only 10...
Oh, sure. So I chip in 5 more than you. Okay, you got brains, you got fancy talk, you're a smart operator. I need a guy like you, Professor. We could go places. Is it a deal?
It's very fair of you, Trixie, but there's one little item I'm afraid you've forgotten.
Yeah?
Yes. Nick.
Nick? Oh, oh, don't be dumb, Professor. You and me know how to handle guys like Nick. Why, when somebody gets in our way, we...
There's a man of faith sneaking up through the woods.
You're crazy.
No, I ain't. I seen him. They're coming up. The cops.
Oh, shut up. Huh. Hey, Professor, come here.
See something, Trixie?
I'll say I do. Look out there.
Out where? Good heavens,
Is there something wrong, Professor?
Throw away that gun, Trixie. You can't...
Friends of yours, huh?
There's some associates of mine. What's that? Sounds as though it were coming from the next room.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it's a state trooper. Maybe something loose. Should I go look, Trixie?
Oh, the trooper who called.
How did you know about him?
Well, I heard it in the, read it in the newspapers, heard it on the radio.
You never. It wasn't in no newspapers and it wasn't on the radio. Trixie, this...
Shut up, Nick. So, Mr. Professor, you thought you could put one over on Trixie Talbot, huh?
Trixie, I think the time has come for us to be frank with each other.
Yeah. Nick,
Yes, Trixie.
take care of them two outside. Run out the back way and don't ask any questions.
Stay here, Nick. If you do as Trixie says, you'll regret it, I warn you.
Pipe down. You go on, Nick. Do like I said.
Listen, Trixie. Maybe this...
You gonna obey orders, Nicky boy?
I'm going, Trixie. You don't have to get sore.
Now, Professor, this is gonna be a pleasure.
Is it? Why not make it doubly pleasurable by first permitting me to explain who I am?
For a guy who's gonna be knocked off, you got a nerve, mister. Who are you, anyway?
The name is Danfield, Dr. Daniel Danfield. You see, I've made a business of studying unusual types of criminals, such as you, Trixie, and I find...
Yeah, that takes care of your friend, Dr. Danfield. So I'm an unusual type, am I?
Indeed you are, Trixie. However, I might say that your associate, Nick, is much more unusual. As a matter of fact, he's a type...
That you, Nick? Come on in. I want you to hear this. This guy says that you're a...
I'm sorry, Trixie. The gentleman approaching you from behind is not Nick.
No, don't try to kid me, Tommy. All right, Nick. Nick, speak up.
Very funny. He thinks that my name is
Why,
Nick.
you...
She fights the good, Doc? Maybe I've fallen in love with her.
In a moment, we'll return for the conclusion of Danger Dr. Danfield. But first... And now for the conclusion of Danger Dr. Danfield. And this incident, of course, concluded the case and definitely proved my foregoing statement that outside agencies frequently influence the actions of the criminal mind. Something wrong, Miss Fairfax?
Yes. I hope you don't expect your lecture classes to believe that.
Believe what, Miss Fairfax?
That it was a woman who influenced Nick to turn bank robber.
Yes, Miss Fairfax, it was. If it hadn't been for Trixie's influence, Nick would have never been in touch. What, Miss Fairfax?
I said nuts. Women never influence men to do anything. Men are too stubborn and ornery and...
Miss Fairfax, I'm about to prove your theory untrue.
Oh, you are?
Yes. Would you mind stepping this way a moment?
What do you want?
Miss Fairfax, I'd intended spending the afternoon in the library studying. Would you, influence me against it?
Would I? Do you mean like that?
Yes, Miss Fairfax. Very satisfactory. Well, get your hat. We're going places. Danger, Dr. Danfield. The human mind is like a cave. Beyond the light, there are dark passageways and mysterious recesses. I, Dr. Daniel Danfield, have explored those known retreats and know their secrets.
Dr. Daniel Danfield, authority on crime psychology, has an unhappy faculty for getting himself mixed up in hazardous predicaments because of his astonishing revelations regarding the workings of the criminal mind. As our story opens, we find Dr. Danfield in his office dictating to his pretty young secretary, Rusty Fairfax.
Period, paragraph. And, unfortunately, it began to look to Miss Fairfax and me as though our trip of 3,000 miles to the town of Santa Playa, California, was to be without profit. However, after delivering my lecture at the university, we entered upon one of the most exciting adventures of our careers. It wasn't until 3 days later, however, that I learned of a strange wedding that had taken place in Tijuana, Mexico.
Well, we are back in the United States again, my dear.
It's all right with me. I hate Mexico.
Oh, but I thought you liked it. You said it.
Yeah, I know. I said I wanted to go down there to get married because it was romantic. Well, I didn't know what it was going to be like.
Does it make a difference? We are now Mr. and Mrs. Manuel Abello. Where will we go back to Mexico again? That I swear.
I'll say we won't.
I think Mexico left a bad taste in your mouth, my dear. Come close to me. Let us kiss and forget.
Oh, Manuel, stop it.
Stop. But you're my wife. You know the man kiss his own wife?
No.
No?
Look, Manuel, we might as well face it now as ever. I'm leaving you in the next town.
You are Oh, come, my dear, you make the joke.
No, but it's no joke. I'm walking out on you.
Walking out? This is something I do not understand. We are married. We are in love.
Nope. Wrong again, Manny. Married, but not in love. I never did love you.
But, Annie...
Don't call me Annie. The name is Anne.
Very well. Anne. Now will you explain, please, that my ears are deceiving me, that I did not hear correctly what you said?
You heard correct, all right. Look, Manny, you came into the United States on a visa, didn't you?
Yes.
According to the conditions of the visa, it becomes null and void if you leave the country even for an hour.
But what has this to do with us getting married?
Just this. I played you for a sucker, chum. You're filthy with dough, and I'm going to have some of it without the bother of being your wife.
Oh? And how is this going to be?
I'm getting a divorce, and then I'm suing you for alimony.
Oh. And will I pay this alimony?
You'll pay it. Unless you want me to notify the government that you broke the terms of your visa.
Oh, so that is it. And will the government believe this story you will tell them?
They'll believe it. This is kind of a racket with me, Manny boy. I know the angles. I take care of everything.
And what are these angles, please?
Remember those pictures we had taken in front of the hotel? Hotel Tijuana? Get it, Manny? Hotel Tijuana, Mexico. It's just too bad if those pictures got into the wrong hands, wouldn't it?
Yes, that is true. You have the pictures with you now?
The pictures, Manny boy, are in safer hands than mine, so don't get any ideas.
Ah, then you have the accomplice.
You bet I have.
Oh, I think this is very funny. I think we are two, what is you call them, suckers.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Poor Manuel. He's taken for the ride, eh? So you think Manuel has the great amount of money, eh?
You have. You said you had. You proved it to me.
Well, of course. Would a wealthy Americano girl marry a poor Spanish refugee? No, that is something for your moving pictures, I think.
Wealthy American girl? Did you think I was wealthy?
Did you not tell Manuel you were?
And I was only giving myself a build-up.
Build-up. See, at building up we are both very excellent, I think.
Why, you dirty double-crossing... No, I'm going to send those pictures to the government anyhow. I'll post them.
I think the government will be very happy to get them. They will say, it is very nice for two American citizens to visit our good neighbors on the south to get married.
Two American citizens? You mean...
Oh, my poor little Annie. She is so clever. In the wrong way, I think.
But the visa?
In the war, the visa says, do not leave this country. But now the war is over. Manuel is the American citizen.
Oh, all that cheap, lousy, two-timing
The pot
guy.
should not call the kettle black. Oh, now, with this understanding that we now have, I think we could still make the happy marriage.
Are you kidding? Do you think I'd be dope enough to tie up with anyone who hasn't any dough?
But we have the love.
Love? Huh? Listen, half-wit, get smart. If you think I'm in love with you, you're crazy.
So? It is perhaps better your way. There is no longer the happy marriage between us because there is no money. I think that is very funny.
You won't think it's so funny. Hey, what are you turning off here for?
In Spain, the wife does not ask the questions. She obeys her husband and is silent.
Well, this isn't Spain, and you're not going to be my husband for very long. What's the idea of stepping on it? There's no fire.
Fire is in my heart. That I do not think you can understand.
Hey, you crazy dope. You took that corner on two wheels.
The next corner, I think we will take on no wheels at all.
Manuel, what's the matter with you? What are you trying to do?
I think it would be beyond your comprehension what I am trying to do, my dear.
Are you nuts? Slow down. Can't you see that curve ahead? Oh, Manuel, we'll never make it.
Well, once you're right, my dear, I do not intend that we shall make it.
Oh, you crazy
But
fool.
pity, my dear, you could not understand.
In a moment, we'll return for the second act of Danger Dr. Danfield. But first...
And now for the second act of Danger Dr. Danfield.
Come in.
Hi, Dan. Say, look, can't we...
Leave the door open, please, Miss Fairfax. Propriety, you know.
Propriety. Dan, sometimes I think you're a prude.
One must be careful.
What are those pictures?
Not quite sure. I came in the mail a half an hour ago. Yeah, what do you think?
Man and a woman standing in front of a Tijuana hotel. That's sticker on their suitcase says they were just married. Anybody we know?
Not yet, Miss Fairfax.
What do you mean, not yet?
There's only one reason why anyone would send me a picture of two people whom I don't know, Miss Fairfax. Whoever the sender is wants me to know the subjects.
But how did whoever sent the pictures know you were staying here at this hotel?
There is a newspaper in town, and my activities are, shall we say, of interest to some people.
Dan Danfield, do you mean that you told the newspapers we were here? And you promised me you wouldn't get mixed up in
Pardon me, Miss Fairfax. Yes, Danfield speaking. I beg your pardon? What pictures? Oh, I see. Yes, I receive. What? 3 miles off. Hello.
Who was it? Was it a man or a woman?
I'm not sure, Miss Fairfax. It could have been either a man or a woman disguising his or her voice. Let me think a minute.
No, wait. Don't start to think yet. Tell me what he said first. Was he asking about these pictures?
Yes, that must be it. No other answer. Most unusual.
Dan, will you please tell me what this is all about?
Oh, yes, of course, Miss Fairfax. Get your notebook, please.
My notebook? What for? Where are we going?
We're going to a spot on a side road 3 miles off the San Diego Highway, Miss Fairfax. There's a body there awaiting our examination. I'm sorry, Miss Fairfax. If I'd known you felt this way, I would have insisted that you remain back at the hotel.
Insisting wouldn't have done any good, and you know it wouldn't.
Well, then please refrain from further complaining and concentrate on the task at hand.
I'm not complaining. Only this seems to me like a wild goose chase. And if it isn't, we're heading for trouble.
I'll be very much disappointed if we don't find trouble. Trouble in this instance will mean an unusual criminal mind. And studying unusual criminal minds is the reason we traveled 3,000 miles across the continent, Miss Fairfax.
I wish you'd picked out a better road than this. This one looks as though it hadn't been traveled on for months.
You're quite wrong, Miss Fairfax. It was traveled on 2 nights ago.
You'd better slow down. That curve up ahead. Dan, look.
Yes, I see it, Miss Fairfax. Overturned automobile.
Oh, it's a terrible accident. It looks as though it just happened, too.
It happened, I think, 2 nights ago, Miss Fairfax. Let's look around.
If it happened 2 nights ago, why hasn't someone reported it? There's no sign of anyone having been here.
No one has been here, Miss Fairfax. As you pointed out yourself, the road hasn't been traveled in months. Well.
What's the... Oh, Dan, it's a man.
Yes, you'd better wait over there, Miss Fairfax.
No, I'm all right. Dan, what a terrible way to die. He's all smashed up.
Indeed he is. Now, let me see.
What are you going to do?
Do? Well, naturally, I'm going to ascertain the victim's identity, if possible. It's strange. His clothes aren't torn.
Shouldn't we call a doctor of the police or something?
A doctor would be of little help to this poor fellow. Well, here's some papers.
What's his name?
According to this driver's license, the gentleman's name is Manuel Abello. Wow.
What's that you're looking at now?
Some pictures, Miss Fairfax. Some pictures of a man and a woman standing in front of the Tijuana Hotel. There's a sticker on the suitcase which says, just married.
They're just like the pictures you got through the mail.
Indeed they are.
Dan?
It means, Miss Fairfax, that this poor chap was murdered. Hello? Oh, yes, Chief Howard. I see. You checked the Bellows house, and he's been missing for 3 days. How about friends and relatives? Well, in that case, the county will take care of the burial. Very well, Chief. Thank you. Well, Miss Fairfax, something on your mind?
Why didn't you tell Chief Howard that this Manuel Abello had gone to Mexico to get married so someone could look up his wife?
Miss Fairfax, I have no proof.
And why didn't you tell him about the pictures you took from Manuel Abello's body?
Under the circumstances, Miss
And
Fairfax...
why didn't you tell him that you thought Manuel Abello had been murdered?
You didn't ask me. Now, Miss Fairfax, I'll have to ask you... Yes, Danfield speaking. Oh, yes, I'll wait.
Who's that?
A certain chap in Tijuana, Mexico. Oh, by the way, Miss Fairfax, do you speak Spanish?
No.
Excellent. Then it won't do you any good to stand so close to me in an attempt to overhear the conversation.
Oh, you...
Yes? Yes, this is Danfield. Hello, Pablo. Yes, that's right. What was the name? Write this down, Miss Fairfax. Anne Everard. Yes, I have it. 2662 Rutherford Drive, Hollywood. Yes. Thank you very much. The check will be mailed to you. Goodbye. Did you get that name and address, Fairfax?
Yes. Who's she?
Well, according to her picture, she's a very attractive girl. Yes, very attractive. I think I shall enjoy talking to Miss Everard.
That house we just passed was 2662 Rutherford Drive.
Well, that's fortunate, because here we are at the end of the street.
Dan, look. We're way up in the Hollywood Hills. Those lights down there are the movie capital.
I have no interest in the cinema industry, Miss Fairfax. Well, here we are. These cement steps lead up to the house, I imagine.
I think this is exciting. I often wondered how it would feel to have Hollywood at my feet.
Well, people who build houses on the sides of hills like this should have their heads examined. I once knew an advertising man.
Dan, look. The farther up we go, the more lights we can see. That must be Hollywood Boulevard over there. Oh, it's like a string of pearls.
Narrow stairs, no lights. It's like an ancient fortress.
Boy, would I like to live in a place like this. I'd sit out on that balcony up there all night long and look at the view.
And undoubtedly you'd be so carried away you'd swoon and tumble off and break your neck. Well, here we are at the top, thank heaven.
Oh, Dan. We're up so high, I feel dizzy.
You're acting dizzy, Miss Fairfax. Come on, let's get on with our task. Here's the bell.
There's probably no one home.
In that event, we'll sit here on the balcony and wait.
He'll sit nowhere and wait. What do you want?
I thought I heard a movement behind the door. Are you Mrs. Abello?
No, never heard of her. Anything else you want to know?
Yes. There's a great deal I want to know, Mrs. Abello.
I told you I'm not Mrs. Abello.
And I say you are, unless you have a twin who was married in Tijuana, Mexico the day before yesterday.
I haven't any twin, and she wasn't married in Tijuana, Mexico the day before yesterday.
She's lying, Dan. She's the girl who was in the
Miss
pictures.
Fairfax,
Pictures?
please.
What pictures?
The ones you had taken in front of the Tijuana
Miss
Hotel.
Fairfax, you're talking too much.
Hey, Felix.
Yeah, baby? Something wrong?
Seems like these two jokers have got some pictures they want to sell us.
Oh, is that a fact? Let's have a look at your goods, chum.
Dan, he's a giant.
Now, look here, my man.
I said let's see the pictures.
I heard you, and I don't like the tone of your voice. Let go of my arm.
I'll break your arm if you don't give me them pictures. Hand them over.
Let go of my arm.
Let him alone, you big see. I'll
Shut her up, Annie.
No, shut her up. Come here.
All right, wise guy. You give me the pictures, or do we toss you both over the balcony?
Don't argue with him, Felix. Fuck him if he's got the pictures.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
I said let go of my arm.
One more chance. You
Put
give
away
me
that
pictures.
gun.
Okay, chum, you asked for it.
In a moment, we'll return for the third act of Danger Dr. Danfield. But first... And now back to Michael Dunne for the third act of Danger Dr. Danfield.
Is he coming too, Felix?
Let me take a look. He'll be all right in a minute. Where's the girl?
Locked her up in the closet. Don't worry about her. What are we going to do with them?
I don't know. First we gotta find out where they got them pictures. And maybe they'd better have a little accident.
Like, falling over the balcony, huh?
Yeah. Like falling over the balcony. We weren't at home, see? They came up here and got to looking at the view.
Hey, the guy's coming too.
My head. Oh, what hit me?
A gun butt, chum. You didn't want to sell us your pictures, remember?
Pictures? Yes. Miss Fairfax, where's Miss Fairfax?
Relax, mister. She's all right.
She'd better be all right. If you harm one hair of that girl's head, I'll...
You'll what, chum?
That Miss Fairfax?
Yeah, that's her. Why?
Oh, thank heaven she's alive.
You won't be for long, and neither will you, chum, unless you tell us where you got those pictures.
Naturally, I'll tell you. Why shouldn't I? You hadn't been so discourteous when I asked you a few simple questions when we first
Skip that. Where'd you get them?
They were found on Manuel Abello's body, of course. Being the attorney for Mr. Abello's estate, I naturally tried to locate his wife in order to make arrangements for the inheritance.
Wait a minute. What inheritance?
Why, Manuel Abello's fortune, naturally. He has no other relatives except his wife.
You mean to say the guy had dough?
Mr. Felix, or whatever your name is, I've already explained that Manuel Abello left a fair-sized fortune.
Annie, did you hear that? Why, you dumb cluck. The guy made a sucker out of you. I told you
Shut up! Listen, you, how do I know you're telling the truth?
I'm not the least bit interested in whether you believe I'm telling the truth or not. It's merely my assignment to find Mrs. Abello and give her...
Mrs. Abello?
But you said that you
Never mind what I said. I'm Mrs. Abello, and I can prove it.
You can?
Sure I can. Here, take a look at this.
Oh. Marriage certificate made out to Anne Everard and Manuel Abello. Seems to be in order. Mrs. Abello, I don't quite understand.
Never mind what you don't understand. I'm Mrs. Abello, and I want that dough.
Oh, this is most irregular. You've already denied being Mrs. Abello.
I had my reasons for denying it.
Oh, would you mind telling me what they are?
No, now that I know he's dead. Manuel was in this country on a limited visa. The police found out about it, he'd be deported. Think I was going to squeal on him?
That sounds reasonable. Yes. Yes, I can understand that. Very well, Mrs. Abello. Oh, by the way, who is this gentleman?
Him? He's my brother.
Oh, I see. Well, if you'll appear at Manuel Abello's house tomorrow evening, the address is 553 North Berendo, and bring the proper credentials, I'll arrange to have the inheritance delivered into your hands.
Dan, you were wonderful.
Thank you, Miss Fairfax. I hesitate to take full credit, however, for anything I've done.
Why not? You sold them the idea you were a lawyer. They believed every word of it.
Well, people who are greedy for money, Miss Fairfax, are willing to believe most anything if they think they're going to get some. Yeah, here's the newspaper office.
Newspaper office? What do we want in here? Are you going to look at those notices about yourself again?
No, Miss Fairfax. I want to read the obituary columns for the last 3 days. And then we're going to call upon the local undertaker. Did you read that street sign, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, it says North Berendo. It's a wonder I can read it, though, the way they put up street signs in this town.
Never mind the street signs. Look for the number 553.
How am I going to see it? It's so dark.
The number on that house was 555, so the next house must be a Bello place.
Well, what are you driving by it for?
I don't think it'd be wise to park directly in front of the house, do you?
Why not? Isn't anyone supposed to know we're here?
No one but Mrs. Abello and, her brother. And I doubt that they'll disturb us.
Disturb us? Dan, what's it all about, anyway?
Hush, Miss Fairfax, you'll arouse the neighbors. Come, let's cut across here.
Why are we going around to the back of the house?
Because in most residences, back door keys are more easily duplicated than front door keys.
You mean you have a key?
I have a pocket full of keys, Miss Fairfax. Careful, you might trip their steps.
Don't worry about me. I won't trip. Oh.
I warned you, Miss Fairfax. Please try and be more careful.
I couldn't help it.
Let me see now. Yes, it's a common, ordinary back door lock. I'll try this key. Well, there we are.
Dan, do you realize this is breaking and entering?
Is it, Miss Fairfax? Come on. This is the kitchen. And this must be the dining room.
If we get caught, we'll go to jail.
Will we? This, I think, is the living room. Yes, those windows open on the front of the house.
We might even get sent up for life.
Indeed. Come over here, Miss Fairfax. Yes, here's the light switch. Can you feel it, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, but if I turn on the light...
Stand here, Miss Fairfax, with your hand on the light switch. When our visitor arrives, I'll tell you when you can switch on the lights.
Our visitor?
Hush, Miss Fairfax. You're making too much noise. I'll stand over here near the window.
Dan.
Yes, Miss Fairfax?
I'm scared. big gorilla, Felix.
Oh, Miss Fairfax, it isn't Felix. Hush now. All right, Miss Fairfax, now.
What are you doing here? This is my house. Who are you?
Who we are is not important. It's who you are, Senor Manuel Abello. In a moment, we'll return for the conclusion of Danger Dr. Danfield. But first...
And now for the conclusion of Danger Dr. Danfield.
And I'm therefore happy to report that our trip to the West Coast was somewhat profitable. Circumstances and opportunity gave Manuel his chance to... Oh, was something wrong, Miss Fairfax?
No, but before you go on with this treatise, I'd like to ask a few questions, just to satisfy my own curiosity.
Well, go right ahead, Miss Fairfax.
Okay. Was Manuel a crook?
Manuel, Miss Fairfax, was actually in this country illegally. He was also wealthy, as Anne Everard at first supposed.
Then why did he tell her he wasn't?
Because if he convinced Anne that he was poor, she'd naturally lose interest in him and forget about the pictures.
Then why the fake accident?
Oh, it wasn't a fake. Unfortunately, Manuel was really in love with Anne. He intended to kill them both when he wrecked the car.
But he didn't succeed.
No. Miraculously, both of them escaped death. When Anne returned to consciousness, she thought Manuel was dead. This, she decided, was a stroke of luck.
Why?
Because now she could marry Felix or anyone else without bothering to get rid of Manuel.
But Manuel wasn't dead.
Oh, no. When he returned to consciousness, he thought of a much better idea for revenge. He returned to town and studied the newspapers until he found one item about the body of an unidentified man being found several days before on the beach. He bribed the local undertaker to let him steal the body, placed it near the wrecked auto, then sent me the pictures and later phoned me.
I don't see why you're the one he should call.
Oh, really, Miss Fairfax, you're not very flattering. Manuel knew that I'd investigate and probably reason that he, Manuel, had been murdered. He knew I'd accuse Anne, and Anne would have rather a difficult job denying knowledge of the accident since she didn't report it. Any more questions, Miss Fairfax?
Yes. How did you know that Anne and her brother wouldn't keep their appointment with us at Manuel's house?
Because I called the police and had them arrested.
Oh. Now, how did you figure all this out?
Very simply, Miss Fairfax. The body that we found beside the wrecked car was badly mangled, yet the clothes he wore were hardly soiled. Obviously, he was a phony. Also, who could have called me about the pictures if not Manuel himself? The rest is merely a matter of finding Anne Everard and then checking the local newspapers.
How did you know Manuel would return to his home?
I didn't. If his plan had worked, Manuel would have dropped out of sight, which was what he wanted. I guessed that he'd return to his home to collect a few personal things before he disappeared forever.
Okay. Go on with the dictation.
Miss Fairfax.
Well?
Just a moment, please.
Dan, I thought you were... Dan.
I dislike having you so bored, Miss Fairfax. Shall we postpone the dictation for a moment?
Oh, Dan, Oh, Danny.
Well, why didn't I think of that before?
Danger, Dr. Danfield.
As our story opens, we find Dr. Danfield, authority on crime psychology, in his office, dictating to his pretty young secretary, Rusty Fairfax.
Period paragraph. And I therefore want to set forth the following incident to establish my theory firmly that it's the common everyday citizens who, upon reverting to the criminal type, betray more cunning than the seasoned professional. It was at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning a few weeks ago when Oliver Norton, New York's most famous play producer, arrived at his palatial office.
Good morning, Mr. Norton.
Good morning, darling. Any important calls this morning?
Yes, Phil Saffron called. He'd like you to meet him for lunch.
Let me see. I have that Carlson matter. Call Saffron, ask him to make it tomorrow. Anything else?
Nothing important.
Good. Cancel anything that's on the calendar up to 3 o'clock. I have some things that I want to attend to alone.
Yes, sir.
What? Cora, who let you in here?
Hello, Oliver. Nobody let me in. I came up in the private elevator and sneaked in when your efficient secretary went out to powder her nose.
Well, of all... Oh, look here, Cora, this sort of thing has got to stop. You're interfering with my work.
You don't want to see me?
Well, yes, of course I do, but... Well, during working hours...
It was you who suggested that I come up during working hours.
Well, it was different then. Oh, hang it, Cora. You must realize that there's got to be an end.
Yes, I should have known that the first time I came here for a job, shouldn't I, Oliver? Only a naive little country girl would have believed you.
Do we have to go through all that again, Cora?
I'm not going to be brushed off so lightly, Oliver.
Look, Cora, you must understand one thing. Working on my sympathies isn't going to do any good. I don't feel like a hero. I told you in the very beginning what might happen.
Which is another way of saying that you don't love me anymore?
I never did love you, Cora. I know that sounds brutally frank, but I'm sorry if you've fallen in love with me.
Darling, you're wonderful. You really are. Know something? Compared to a naive country girl, you're positively stupid.
Oh?
Don't you know why I listened to all your smooth talk and pretended to believe everything you said?
Pretended?
Of course. I came to New York because I wanted a career on the stage. I believed I had talent as an actress. Can you deny that I have that talent, Oliver?
Well, to a certain extent, you really...
I must have put on a convincing performance to have completely fooled the great Oliver Norton.
Oh, really, Cora? Aren't you being a little ridiculous?
Perhaps. I'll know in a minute.
Just what does that mean?
First, Oliver, let me assure you that I'm not the least bit disturbed that you've cast me aside like an old glove.
Well, excellent. Then neither of us has any regrets.
None at all. We both had selfish motives at the beginning. We both were completely satisfied with the bargain we made.
Exactly. Frankly, Cora, you're showing more good sense than I believed you capable of. And now, dear, if there's anything I can do to help...
Oh, there is, Oliver. Definitely.
Well, what is it, dear?
I want the leading feminine role in your play, Midnight Sun.
Oh, come, my dear. You know very well that's one wish I can't grant.
Oh, yes, you can.
Oh.
And you're going to.
Be reasonable, Cora. You're not the type to play the role of Elsie Wood. And even if you were, well, I promised the part to someone else.
To Lola Crothers?
Yes.
Did you tell Lola Crothers that you'd also promised it to me?
Naturally not. Now, look here,
Did
Cora.
you tell Lola Crothers that you were also in love with me?
I wasn't. I just told you that.
You said you were, and I pretended to believe you. It was a very enlightening experience. It taught me so much about Oliver Norton.
Just what are you getting at, Cora?
Well, we women have a code among ourselves, Oliver. If one of us benefits by an experience, we share the profits.
Oh, come now, let's not be melodramatic. So you're going to tell Lola about us, unless I give you the leading role in Midnight Sun.
Oh, I'm going to do a lot more than that, Oliver. I'm going to write an article for newspaper publication entitled Adventures with Oliver Norton.
Oh, that's childish. No newspaper in the city would be interested in such an article.
Oh, yes, they would, Oliver. Here, take a look at this.
Let's see, Miss Cora Rogers, 5524 West... Cora... This letter says that the New York Express would be interested in purchasing some letters which I wrote to you. I wrote you no letters.
Really, Oliver? You're going to be surprised when my article appears.
Why, you can't do this. It's blackmail. It's defamation of character.
Well, how quickly you catch on to things, Oliver. Now, listen. Here it is in a nutshell. As far as everyone else goes, I'm still the naive little country girl who came to New York to go on the stage. Oh, that's surefire human interest stuff. And the fact that the great and mysterious Oliver Norton took a personal interest in me, well, makes it even better.
You fool, don't you know that this will ruin your chances on the stage forever?
Of course I know it. And I know also it'll ruin the great Oliver Norton forever. I know it'll ruin your play, and I know it won't do Lola Crothers any good. You see, Oliver, we're going to rise or fall together. That's the bargain we made.
And so you're willing to throw everything overboard just to...
Yes, I'm willing. Are you?
No. Cora, does your newspaper friend know that you're here in my office now?
No, but he will.
And you sneaked in without my secretary or anyone else seeing you.
Would you have seen me if I'd announced myself? No. I wanted to give you a chance, Oliver, so I... What are you locking the door for?
Cora, you made one big mistake. You forgot that there's another answer to the problem.
Oliver, what are you going to do? No, you keep away from me.
You forgot, my dear, that Oliver Norton's reputation is impeccable. He doesn't become involved in shoddy affairs. No one would believe that he was capable of...
I won't publicize. No, don't you... You're looking at
You underestimated me, my dear. This will prove how wrong you were.
In a moment, we'll return for the second act of Danger Dr. Danfield, but first... back to Michael Dunne for the second act of Danger, Dr. Dan.
Oh, Dan, thank heavens you're here. Captain Otis is waiting for you in the front
I know
office.
he is, Miss Fairfax. I've already talked to him on the phone. Pick up your notebook and come along with you.
Dan, wait a minute. The university
Never
called.
mind the university. This is more important.
But, Dan, your lecture. Oh, all right.
Hello, Captain. Sorry I'm late. What you had to say over the phone interests me very much.
I hoped it would, Doc. I also hope that you'll agree to help me out. Frankly, I wouldn't dare to tell my theory to anyone else.
Well, that's very flattering. Oh, well, come in, Miss Fairfax. Sit down, please, and take notes on the conversation, will you?
I'm ready any time.
Fine. Captain, there's just one question I want to ask you. Why do you associate the obvious suicide of a young actress whose body was found in a respectable apartment house with Oliver Norton, the producer?
Well, Doc, maybe I'm crazy. I haven't any reason except that I can't think of anyone else who would murder the girl.
And what makes you think she was murdered?
Well, there you've got me again. If anything ever looked like suicide, this does. All her things were in order, and the cracks around the windows were plugged up with sealing wax. And she was lying on the floor with her face within a few inches of the gas jet.
Did she have a motive for suicide?
Yes. She'd come to New York to go on the stage and had been doing pretty well. Recently, she'd been telling her friends that she was going to play the role of Elsie Wood in Oliver Norton's new play, Midnight Sun.
I seem to remember reading about that in the theater pages. Yes, a week ago, Oliver Norton announced that Lola Crothers was going to play the lead, didn't he?
Yes. We hadn't talked with Norton yet, but we've checked his whereabouts yesterday. He was in his office all morning, and our autopsy proves that it was at approximately 11 o'clock yesterday morning that Cora Rogers died.
Yeah, the autopsy proved that she died of gas poisoning?
Well, that's hard to say. There was gas in her lungs, but there were also indications that she was strangled.
Very interesting. So you think she might have been murdered, eh?
Well, actually, my only reason for thinking she was murdered, Doc, is that as far as I can learn, she wasn't the type of girl who would commit suicide. Too strong a character.
Well, then it's a job for the police. Dr. Danfield has an important
Miss
lecture.
Fairfax, please. You were going to say, Captain Otis?
Well, I'm shooting in the dark, Doc. Of course, I'm guessing. I haven't got one piece of concrete evidence.
And because of that, you don't want to stick your chin out. You want Dr. Danfield to do it instead.
Miss Fairfax?
Well, she's right, Doc. 100% right. Oliver Norton's a big man, an important man. And his reputation is without a flaw. And if it became known that the police were investigating him in connection with this, suicide, well...
I see what you mean. Now, just why do you think I'd risk my reputation?
Doc, your business is studying unusual types of criminal minds.
Well?
Suppose you found out that Oliver Norton was the murderer. Now, here's a man who's led a normal, everyday life. He's enjoyed fame and wealth. Now suddenly he turns around and becomes a murderer. Well, wouldn't you call that unusual?
Yes, you're quite right.
But suppose he isn't the murderer. Then where will Dan be?
Well, he won't have lost anything, Miss Fairfax. Doc, don't you know Oliver Norton?
I've met him on one or two occasions, yes.
Well, there you are. Doc here calls on Oliver Norton. He knows that Norton used to work with Cora Rogers. He asks questions because he's gathering material for his next lecture.
No. Oliver Norton would immediately become suspicious.
I don't think so, Miss Fairfax. This is the sort of thing that Doc does all the time. He keeps saying he's not a detective. Well, everybody knows that. The last thing the public suspects is that the police believe Oliver Norton had anything to do with this suicide of Cora Rogers.
No, it wouldn't work. Besides, it would be dangerous.
That's enough, Miss Fairfax. Captain, if you can convince me that Cora Rogers was murdered, I'll be glad to do what I can.
Well, that's not going to be so easy. But come on over to her apartment and take a look yourself. This is it here.
Hey, there's still a smell of gas in the place.
Well, we purposely kept the windows closed until we'd completed our investigation, Miss Fairfax.
Rather expensive appointments for a comparatively unknown actress, wouldn't you say so, Captain?
That's right. Miss Rogers, with the help of Oliver Norton, had done very well for herself.
I see. Is the room in the same condition as when the cleaning woman discovered the body?
Yes. Miss Rogers was found lying there on the floor near that gas heater. The burned match on the rug was apparently used to melt the sealing wax.
Why don't you dust the burned match for fingerprints? Wouldn't that tell you something?
It'd be practically impossible to get a print from a match that size, Miss Fairfax. It's a safety match and unusually small. Find anything, Doc?
Oh, no. Just looking around. Seems odd that anyone would have enough sealing wax on hand to seal up all the windows.
On the contrary. It wouldn't take as much as you think. A little more than 2/3 of that stick on the dresser was all that was needed. We also found some envelopes that Miss Rogers had sealed with the same wax, so we know it wasn't brought in from the outside.
How about fingerprints on the stick of wax?
No, we tried that, but there weren't any. All wiped off.
They were? Well, it's funny to me that anyone who was going to commit suicide would bother to wipe their fingerprints from a stick of wax.
A very clever observation, Miss Fairfax. Captain, I suspect you knew one of us would ask about that. What's the answer?
Well, frankly, Doc, it establishes my theory more firmly that the girl was murdered. I thought if you discovered it for yourself...
I see.
You're sure you didn't wipe the prints off yourself, Captain Otis, just so we...
Miss Fairfax, let's not try to be too clever. Captain, are these articles on the table the contents of Miss Rogers' purse?
That's right. All her personal things are right there.
Let me see. Handkerchief, keys, lipstick, cigarettes and lighter, charger plate, vanity, wallet, change purse, newspaper clipping. Well, this is amazing.
What's amazing about it? I've got the same kind of junk in my purse.
Have you indeed, Miss Fairfax? Captain, are you positive that these are all the things that were found in Miss Rogers' purse or on or near the body?
Yes. Why?
Miss Fairfax, I want you to call Oliver Norton immediately and make an appointment for us to see him.
Dan, do you mean
I mean, Miss Fairfax, that now I'm not only positive that Cora Rogers didn't commit suicide, but I can tell in a very short time whether or not Oliver Norton murdered her.
Yes?
Hello, are you Mr. Norton?
Yes, I'm Mr. Norton.
Well, I'm Miss Fairfax, Dr. Danfield.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, of course. Come in, Miss Fairfax. How is Danfield, by the way?
Isn't he here?
No, it's still 10 minutes to the time of our appointment.
Oh.
Well, then perhaps you can give me some warning as to what to expect from Danfield.
Didn't he tell you over the phone?
No, my secretary took the call. She tried to put him off, but he merely said he was coming out anyhow. Quite a character, Danfield.
Yes, quite. I guess I'd better let him tell you what it's all about, Mr. Norton.
Oh, well then, what should we talk about?
Well, it's been a nice day today.
Ah, but warmer than yesterday.
The day before was really hot.
What did you notice the day before that?
Let me see. That would be Wednesday. Why, I thought it rained on Wednesday.
Miss Fairfax, you're wonderful. I must congratulate Danfield on his choice of a secretary. But come now, hadn't you better tell me what Danfield's got on his mind so I can prepare myself a bit?
I'm sorry, Mr. Norton. Dan wouldn't want me to, I'm sure.
By George, I know.
You do?
It's about Cora Rogers' suicide. It must be.
What makes you think that?
He knew she worked with me. Oh, what a tragic thing to happen. And just when she was about to appear as my leading lady in Midnight Sun.
What? But I thought that Laura Crothers was...
Oh, no. You probably read that in the newspapers. I don't know how they got hold of the story. I denied it as soon as I could. And yesterday I announced definitely that Cora was to have the part.
What time yesterday?
What time yesterday? It was sometime in the morning. My secretary phoned it in.
Was it before 11 o'clock?
Well, probably. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made the afternoon editions. Hello? Yes, this is Norton speaking. Yes.
That can't be true if it is.
Oh, what's that? Danfield? Well, you don't mean it.
Is something wrong with Dan? Who's that on the phone?
Just a minute, Miss Fairfax. Oh, what was he doing? Very well. I'll be there immediately.
Who was that? What's happened to Dan?
That was the night watchman in my offices, Miss Fairfax. He just found Dr. Danfield lying on the floor beside my desk, shot.
In a moment, we return for the third act of Danger, Dr. Danfield, but first... Now back to Michael Dunne for the third act of Danger, Dr. Danfield.
Oh, let's hurry.
Yes. I'm afraid hurrying isn't going to help matters, my dear. This is my private elevator. My office is on the second floor.
Dan can't be dead. He can't be.
Can only hope for the best. I don't know what he was doing in my office this time of night.
What did the watchman say? Did he say that Dan was dead?
No, my dear. He merely said that Danfield had been shot. Here we are. Now, we're there. I'm afraid the implication wasn't very encouraging.
Which way is your office?
This is it. Directly across the hall.
I tell you I'm all right, Captain. I'll begin, please. Oh. Here's Miss Fairfax and Mr. Norton.
Dan, your face is covered with blood. Oh, Dan, I'm so glad you're alive.
Alive, Miss Fairfax? Whatever gave you the impression that I wouldn't be?
You were shot and all that blood on your face.
A mere scratch. Hello, Norton. Apparently we got mixed up on our appointment.
Mixed up? You said you were coming out to the house.
No such thing. Miss Fairfax, you made the appointment with Mr. Norton for here in his office, didn't you?
I made it. Well, Dan, listen.
Of course you did. Well, Captain, I think I can give you an answer in a very few minutes.
My answer? But listen, Doc, I don't see...
Naturally you don't, Captain. Norton, while waiting for you to keep your appointment, I read in the newspapers that you decided to give the leading feminine part in Midnight Sun to Cora Rogers.
Yes. It's a pity she didn't know about it before she tragically took her own life.
She didn't take her own life. She was murdered. Captain, will you do as I suggest?
Yes, but...
Thank you. Norton, may I have the address of Miss Lola Crothers, please?
Lola Crothers? Now, look here, Dan.
It was Lola Crothers who shot at me tonight. She did so because she thought that the man sitting at your desk was you. I want to ask her one question. Then I think we'll know who it was who murdered Cora Rogers.
Dan, will you please explain what this is all about? Why did you tell Mr. Norton that you'd made the appointment with him at his office? Dan!
What was that, Miss Fairfax? Appointment? What appointment?
Oh, skip it.
Yes, very good idea. Now, let me think a minute, will you? What would such a person do under such conditions?
Dan?
Another question, Miss Fairfax?
Yes. What's the question you want to ask Lola Crothers?
It's not a very difficult question. I merely want to ask her at what time she called at Mr. Norton's office on the day of the murder.
How do you know she called there?
I don't, Miss Fairfax.
Well, that tells me a lot. Well, when you discover whether or not she was there and at what time, what's it going to prove?
I've already explained that, Miss Fairfax. It's going to prove who murdered Cora Rogers. Oh, by the way, what did you and Mr. Norton talk about at his house tonight?
The weather.
Very interesting subject, the weather. Don't know what we'd do without it, no, indeed. Well, I believe this is Miss Crothers' apartment building. Come along, Rusty. We're about to meet another unusual type.
It looks as though Miss Crothers weren't at home.
Yes, it does, doesn't it, Miss Fairfax?
Well, if she were, she'd have heard you knock by now. That's the 5th time.
This is unusual. Yeah, I'll try the door. Well, that's odd.
What's the matter?
The door's unlocked, but it seems to be stuck.
Stuck?
Yes. There we are.
Dan, look here at the door frame.
Yes, I see it, Miss Fairfax. The door was stuck with sealing wax.
Dan, I smell gas.
So do I. Here, I'll find the light switch. There.
Dan, on the floor near the gas heater.
Quickly, Miss Fairfax, open some windows while I turn off the gas. Pity we didn't get here sooner. I'm afraid it's too late.
Dan, is she...
Yes, I'm afraid she is, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, Dan, this is awful. She died exactly as Cora Rogers died. Cora's windows were sealed with wax, too. Oh, there's the box of matches on the floor, and there's the newspaper telling of Cora Rogers getting the lead in Midnight Sun.
You're right in every respect but one, Miss Fairfax.
What's that?
Lola Crothers didn't die in the same manner as Cora Rogers. The sealing wax, which caused the door to stick, indicates that no one left this room after the wax was applied.
Then Laura Crothers did commit suicide.
Yes. Please get Captain Otis on the phone and ask him to come up here and bring Oliver Norton with him.
Oh, good heavens, this is terrible. I can't imagine Lola doing such a thing.
Can't you, Mr. Norton? Well, perhaps you can. Up until the time I talked to you at some length, I couldn't imagine a man like you murdering a girl like Cora Rogers. Not true to type at all.
What the devil do you mean by that?
Well, naturally, I mean that you murdered Cora Rogers.
Excuse me for interrupting, Doc, but unless you can prove that...
I can prove it all right, Captain.
Of course he can. I don't know how, but I know that Dr. Danfield wouldn't make a statement like that unless he could prove it.
Thank you, Miss Fairfax. Well, Mr. Norton, would you like to have me tell you how this all came about?
I'm always interested in stories, if they're good.
Stop me if I'm wrong.
Don't worry. Let's hear it, Danfield.
Cora Rogers came to your office yesterday morning and pleaded with you to give her the lead in Midnight Sun. No one knew she was there.
How do you know that?
Well, the answer is obvious. We talked to your secretary, some other office workers, the operator of the public elevator, and nobody saw her. Does that answer your question?
Why, this is so ridiculous, it's silly.
Miss Rogers threatened you, probably with some kind of blackmail. In a fit of rage, you strangled her into unconsciousness.
Why, this is the most fantastic notion I've...
Quiet, Norton.
At that point, Mr. Norton, you ceased to be a normal, everyday citizen. Your mind reverted to the crafty cunning of the criminal.
So what did I do?
You carried Miss Rogers to the kitchen, which composes a part of your elaborate suite of offices, and allowed her to inhale enough gas fumes to finish the job you started.
So, that's why it was difficult to tell by the autopsy just how Miss Rogers died.
Yes. Still being motivated by the criminal instinct which was now uppermost in your mind, Mr. Norton, you called the press and released the story that Miss Rogers had been given the part in Midnight Sun.
And that night he carried Miss Rogers' body to her own apartment.
Exactly, Captain. First of all, however, Mr. Norton held several conferences in his office. The body during this time remained in the kitchen.
So that established the fact that Norton was in his office all day.
Yes, and when Lola Crothers read the announcement in the evening paper, she phoned Norton, who told her flatly her contract was canceled.
And that's why Lola came down here a couple of hours ago and tried to kill Norton.
That's right. Everything worked out as a perfect alibi for Norton.
But how about Lola Crothers? Did Norton murder her, too?
No, Lola Crothers committed suicide. When she shot at me and missed, she realized I'd recognized her. I think that she'd intended to take her own life anyhow after she'd killed Norton.
So she did it in the same manner that Cora Rogers had died, hoping that the similarity of the two suicides would reflect unfavorably on Norton.
Yes. Lola thought that Miss Rogers had committed suicide. If she had known that Miss Rogers had been murdered, I think it would have made a difference. Well, Norton, you haven't stopped me for quite some time.
An experienced producer never interrupts a good performance. Yes, you were correct in your reenactment, Danfield. But you forget that Oliver Norton is famous for producing dramatic climaxes.
Watch out, Doc, you're going to shoot him.
Stand back, Danfield. Oliver Norton plays this scene alone.
In a moment, we'll return for the conclusion of our story, but first,
I'll be back in just a few seconds to tell you how my understanding of the criminal mind solved this case.
And now for the conclusion of Danger, Dr. Danfield.
Period, paragraph. It was, of course, my knowledge of the criminal mind, plus the fact that merely by the process of elimination and the establishment of motives, I was able to piece together the movements of Oliver Norton, and thereby... I'm not through, Miss Fairfax.
Dan, do you mean you were only guessing when you told us how Norton had murdered Cora Rogers?
Of course I wasn't guessing, Miss Fairfax. I never guessed. The murderer had to be Norton. Anyone who studied the human mind as much
Now,
as I...
just a minute, Dr. Danfield. How did you know that Cora had been murdered in the first place?
The first place?
Don't pretend innocence. When we first visited Cora Rogers' apartment, you said you knew it was murder. How'd you know?
Well, it was the burned matches we found on the floor, Miss Fairfax.
Burned matches?
Yes. Yes, you see, they were safety matches, as you, of course, remember.
Well,
safety matches come in boxes, Miss Fairfax. As a matter of fact, they're useless without the box to strike them on. And if you'll recall, we found no box. People do things instinctively, if it has become a long habit with them. Oliver Norton instinctively placed the box of matches back in his pocket after melting the sealing wax.
oh, Dan, I've got to break down and admit it. You're terrific. Say, you know something?
What's that, Rusty?
There's one thing I like about these cases. When they're all over, you start calling me Rusty. Then...
And then?
This.
Ah, you're quite a girl, Rusty.
Danger, Dr. Danfield.
The human mind is like a cave. Beyond the light, there are dark passageways and mysterious recesses. I, Dr. Daniel Danfield, have explored those unknown retreats and know their secrets.
Dr. Daniel Danfield, authority on crime psychology, has an unhappy faculty for getting himself mixed up in hazardous predicaments because of his astonishing revelations regarding the workings of the criminal mind. As our story opens, we find Dr. Danfield in his office dictating to his pretty young secretary, Rusty Fairfax.
Period, paragraph. And naturally, I was glad to avail myself of the opportunity and excitement of studying a criminal mind when the criminal believed that he was completely free from suspicion. It was 4 weeks ago today that my secretary, Miss Fairfax, arrived 5 minutes late for work. Good morning, Miss Fairfax. Is that package for me?
The postman just gave it to me. Mind if I open it?
Oh, why not, Miss Fairfax? Does the return address indicate from whom it was sent?
There isn't any return address.
No. Well, in that event, we'll open... Is there something wrong, Miss Fairfax?
There certainly is something wrong. Look.
By George. The package seems to contain some excellent samples of United States currency.
It sure does. They're $1,000 bills.
How many are there?
7, 8, 9, 10. $10,000. Dan, who do you suppose sent them and why?
Well, possibly some counterfeiter wanted me to see an example of his work.
These bills are counterfeit? Wait a minute. Here's a note addressed to you.
Indeed. Let me have it, Miss Fairfax. Probably it contains the answer to the riddle. Wow. They're extraordinary.
Well, what does it say?
Say? Oh, here, I'll read it to you, Miss Fairfax. Danfield, be smart and forget where you were on August 31st. Most unusual.
Who signed it?
There's no signature, Miss Fairfax.
Well?
Well, what?
Where were you on August 31st?
Don't be ridiculous, Miss Fairfax. I haven't the faintest idea where I was on August 31st. Have you?
Of course.
Where were you?
With you.
Let's not be facetious, Miss Fairfax. The fact that someone has mailed me this money is highly significant. And let me see.
Dan, I know.
No, what, Miss Fairfax?
August 31st was the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. You didn't give your usual lecture at the university, and I went up to Connecticut to visit my folks.
That's right, Miss Fairfax, and that proves you're wrong, doesn't it? You weren't with me, after all. As a matter of fact, no one was with me. I spent the day... By George!
Think of something?
Indeed I have, Miss Fairfax. There was a telephone call from a man named, well, what was his name?
Are you asking me?
Yes, you see, it's very important...
Perhaps that's your mysterious friend calling again.
I doubt it. Hello, Danfield speaking. Oh, yes, Captain Otis.
Captain Otis. That means another case, I suppose.
Yes, Captain? I see. Well, what's unusual about the circumstances? Indeed. What's the gentleman's name? Norman Miles. That's it. That's the man's name. What? Oh, yes, I know you just said it was. I'm sorry, Captain. Yes, indeed I will. Miss Fairfax and I will be out to the Miles home in less than an hour. Goodbye.
Well, what's it all about?
A gentleman named Norman Miles was found dead in his bed this morning. He was murdered, Miss Fairfax.
What's that got to do with us?
It was Norman Miles who called me on the phone August 31st and asked me to investigate 3 relatives, one of whom he believed was planning to murder him.
But you're not a detective. You've said so 100 times. But I suppose you've got to have your fun.
Yes, you're quite right, Miss Fairfax. That's why I kept Mr. Miles' offer in the back of my mind. And the details that Captain Otis has just given me have put an entirely different light on the matter.
Oh, they have? Well, whatever Captain Otis told you doesn't prove it was Norman Miles who sent you this money.
I think it does, Miss Fairfax. In fact, I know it does. Norman Miles knew he was going to be murdered. He wants me to apprehend the man who murdered him.
I seriously doubt that statement.
Oh, then I shall prove it to you. If you'll get your notebook and come along with me, I'll introduce you to one of the most interesting cases we've ever investigated.
In a moment, we'll return to Danger Dr. Danfield, but first... Now for the second act of... Danger Dr. Danfield.
I still think we should have Mario along.
Do you, Miss Fairfax?
Yes. If all 3 of the relatives are at the Norman Miles house now, and one of them is a murderer, we need protection.
That's certainly extraordinary.
Dan, what are you thinking about?
Things, Rusty, just things. Yes, I believe we're going to find an unusual situation. I hope you brought along your notebook.
Of course I brought my notebook. This the house?
Yes, and there's an officer on guard at the door. Otis is a man of his word.
I don't see why Captain Otis has to call you every time he gets himself in a jam.
Captain Otis is not in a jam, my dear. It was very kind of him to give me this opportunity. Hello, officer. I'm Dr. Danfield.
Oh, okay, Doc. Go on in there, waiting for you.
Thank you. Well, I should judge by the pretentiousness of Mr. Miles' home that he was well able to advance us $10,000, wouldn't you, Rusty?
And for the same reason, I can see why his relatives would want him dead. Well, there they are.
Yes, and by their expressions, I should say they were a rather unhappy trio.
I suppose you're Danfield. Now, look here, Danfield. We're sick and tired of the way we're being treated.
I'll say we are. Who does this Captain Otis think he is, anyhow?
No, wait a minute, you two. Perhaps this isn't Danfield. Give the guy a chance to introduce himself.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Danfield. Now, suppose you tell me who you are.
If you're Danfield, then get us out of here. Why, I was never so humiliated
Shut up, Judith. Stop crabbing.
Guy couldn't let us out of here even if he wanted to. There are cops all over the place.
You're quite right. I have absolutely no authority. Oh, this is my secretary, Miss Fairfax. I presume that you three are Norman Miles' relatives?
That's right. I'm Vincent Warren. The old man was my uncle.
I'm Larry Kent, another nephew. This young lady is Judith Nelson, a niece.
The idea of saying one of us murdered Uncle Norman.
One of you did murder him, Miss Nelson.
What do you mean?
Nonsense.
You're jumping to conclusions pretty fast, aren't you, Danfield?
Not at all. One of you three murdered him. All of my evidence points to that fact.
What evidence? You haven't been here 5 minutes. How could you have picked up any evidence?
It came by mail. $10,000 worth.
That's enough, Miss Fairfax. For the time being, I'll have to ask you people to accept my statement and cooperate.
Cooperate? How? By signing a confession?
I could hardly hope for that, Miss Nelson. In fact, I'd be disappointed if one of you did sign a confession.
Why?
Because my purpose in being here is to study the guilty person's mind while he or she believes himself or herself free from detection.
Do you mean that merely by talking with the three of us, you can tell which one of us is guilty? Assuming, of course, that one of us is guilty?
Precisely, Mr. Warren. Consider the facts. One of you is a murderer. To a man who has made a lifelong study of the human mind, it will be quite easy to determine the identity of the guilty party.
Well, how do you like that?
Now, wait a minute now. I always say every man to his own profession. Danfield, I understand, has one of those mixmaster minds. Maybe his ideal work.
Okay, what difference does it make? You haven't any alternative anyhow.
That's the point exactly, Mr. Warren. You haven't. I merely wanted to point out to you that I know one of you is guilty. You're all fairly warned.
Well, what do you want us to do?
First of all, I'd like to have someone tell me exactly what happened last night. I understand that when Mr. Miles' body was discovered, all the doors and windows of his room were locked on the inside.
Yes, that's right, they were. Uncle Norman had a phobia against an unlocked door or window. Couldn't go to sleep unless he had checked all the locks himself.
Then how did you know he got into the room this morning?
By breaking the door down.
Well, why did he do that?
Well, Uncle Norman was a victim of habit. He did everything by the clock. Went to bed, got up, ate meals, everything.
I see. This morning he didn't appear at breakfast at the regular hour.
Yes, that's it. We'd all come down to breakfast and we're sitting waiting.
Judith, you have to keep yawning. You're making me sleepy.
Oh, sorry, darling. I can't help it. I'm not used to getting up in the middle of the night.
Neither am I. Sometimes I wonder if all this is worth it.
Well, it's worth it to me. The way things are going in my business, I could use $1/3 of $1,000,000 very nicely.
Well, who couldn't? That's what I tell myself every time I'm ordered down here for a weekend. Then I say, 1/3 of a cool $1 million is a lot of dough. Quit beefing and go earn your money.
Well, what kills me is that he picked a weekend to order us to come and see him. I had a party planned up in the mountains. Oh, well, it's worth it, I guess.
Sure it is. Uncle Norman can't live forever.
I'm beginning to doubt that. How old is he, anyhow?
73, his last birthday.
Say, wouldn't it be a joke on us if he left his door to a home for stunted ducks or something?
No, he wouldn't do that. He's told us enough times that we're his kids.
Say, what time is it anyway?
Time? All right, 8:15. Why?
Why? Uncle Norman would die rather than be late for breakfast. He told us last night that breakfast was to be at 7:45.
Well, maybe he did die. In his sleep. Oh, well, why worry about it? He'll be along.
I think one of us ought to go up and see if he's all right.
What good would it do? He always keeps his doors locked.
Oh, we could wake him up by knocking.
Are you kidding? Uncle Norman wouldn't wake up if a bomb exploded under his bed. He's that deaf.
I think Judith's right. We ought to do something.
I'll go up.
No, wait a minute. We'll all go.
What's the matter, darling? Afraid to let me have a few minutes alone, my dear uncle?
You bet I am, you little sneak. I don't trust you as far as I can throw an anvil.
Why, you rat, you're just...
Quit it, you two. Let's get going. You know how Uncle Norman feels about us quarreling. Now, come on. The least we can do is respect his wishes while we're in his house.
Oh, don't set yourself up as a model, Larry. You're no paragon.
But at least I've got the decency to...
cut it out. We're all putting on an act, so why not lay off till we get away from here?
You started it.
Now, here's Uncle Norman's room. Now, shut up, both of you.
Listen to that guy, will you?
Try it again, Larry, and louder.
Uncle Norman! Uncle Norman! Hey, do you suppose something's happened to the old boy?
He's not that deaf. What are we going to do? We've got to do something.
Try the knob.
It's locked. He always locks his door.
He's had another heart attack. I just know he has. Uncle Norman! Uncle Norman!
Well, we'll never hear you.
Well, what are we going to do?
Why don't you force the door? We've got to find out what's wrong.
We'll raise the old Harry if nothing's wrong.
Well, we can't just stand around here all day waiting for him to wake up.
Something's happened to him, or he'd be awake before now. Come on, Vinny, put your shoulder to the door.
Okay, only don't forget it's your idea.
Once more now. Give me that. That does it. Come on.
Oh, thank heavens. There's Uncle Norman in bed, sound asleep.
Now open a window, someone. It's hot as blazes in here.
I'll do it.
Hey, Benny, come over here.
What's the matter? Look. Good heavens, he's dead.
He's not only dead, he's been strangled, murdered.
Well, that's a very interesting story, Mr. Kent. I think it answers my question all right.
What do you mean it answers your question?
Why, it tells me who murdered Norman Miles.
You're crazy.
And if you know who murdered him, why don't you tell us?
For several reasons, Mr. Kent. In the first place, my purpose in being here is to study the criminal and his reactions while he still believes himself unsuspected. Now that I know his identity, my task is going to be much more interesting.
Why, the man's crazy.
Now, look here, Danfield. If you really think you know who it is who murdered Uncle Norman, it's your duty to point out the guilty party.
No, Mr. Warren, I don't think it is. I'm not a policeman or even a private detective. If I pointed out the guilty party, I would only make things more difficult for the police.
Why?
Because I have none of the concrete evidence that the police require in order to establish the murderer's guilt.
In other words, you can prove nothing.
Does that relieve your mind, Miss Nelson? Miss Fairfax, have you your notebook handy?
I'm all set.
Fine. I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'd like to have you jot down the answers verbatim. I think the nature of the answers will determine at what point in our investigation we should ask Officer Moriarty on guard outside the house to step inside and make an arrest.
Well, how do you like that? This guy kills me. He's going to ask 3 questions, and bingo, he can prove who the murderer is. Well, I'm not answering any questions.
Neither am I.
I think you will, because the one who refuses will immediately be taken into custody. Let me see now. Mr. Kent, I believe I'll start with you. Are you quite positive that all the windows and doors in Mr. Miles' bedroom are locked on the inside?
Yes, I've already told you that. I checked them myself.
You mean you checked all but the window that Miss Nelson opened when the 3 of you came through the broken-down door?
Listen, Hawkshaw, if you think that
Please, Miss Nelson, I'll now ask you your question. Was the window locked when you went to open it?
Sure, it was locked. I unlocked it. And if you don't believe me, you can look for my fingerprints. You'll find them.
Very well. Mr. Warren, have the 3 of you been separated at any time since you discovered the body?
Well, since the others came through with answers, I suppose I'd better. No, we all came downstairs, called a doctor, and then the police. We stayed in this room until they arrived.
Excellent. Miss Fairfax, have you got all that down?
Verbatim, Dr. Danfield.
Thank you. Now, will you please step to the door and ask Officer Moriarty to come inside, please?
In a moment, we'll return for the 3rd act of Danger Dr. Danfield, but first... And now for the 3rd act of... Danger Dr. Danfield.
Here we are, Miss Fairfax. Well, they certainly demolished the door to Mr. Miles' bedroom, didn't they?
Dan, you annoy me.
Yes, the lock is sprung. That means the door was locked when the 2 men broke it down.
Giving that big build-up about asking 3 questions and then not paying at all.
Oh, careful when you step into the room, Rusty. You might get stuck in one of the splinters.
Never mind my stockings. There we were, waiting for Officer Moriarty to make the arrest. And then all you did was borrow his flashlight.
These windows are locked exactly as described. Now let's examine the open window.
Do you realize what those people downstairs think of you now? They're laughing at you. When this story gets out, your reputation will be ruined.
Indeed? Possibly we'd better check the fingerprints on this window lock just to make sure that Miss Nelson was telling us the truth. What's your opinion, Miss Fairfax?
My opinion is that we'd better get out of here before we make bigger fools of ourselves than we already have.
Well, look here.
Look where?
Never mind. Your lack of interest in this case surprises me, Rusty. Come along now.
No, Dan, wait. I am interested in the case, only...
Only what?
It's you I'm interested in. You've got such a good reputation. I don't want to see it ruined, that's all.
Rusty, you're really a very nice person. Come on now. In less than 15 minutes, we'll have found what we're looking for. I promise it.
Dan, it's awfully dark out here. I wish Mario were with us.
You're not frightened, are you?
Is there something to be frightened of?
Oh, yes. I have no doubt that someone will attempt to take our lives in a very few minutes.
That's a pleasant thought. What's the matter?
Look there. 2 depressions in the soft earth beneath the window of Mr. Miles' bedroom.
Dan, those marks were made by a ladder.
Quite right.
Then that means that someone put a ladder here last night and climbed up to the... Dan, that window up there is the one that Judith Nelson said she opened.
So it is. However, no one climbed up the ladder.
What do you mean no one climbed up the ladder?
The marks in the ground, Rusty. They indicate that the ladder was only 3 feet from the house. If anyone attempted to climb up it, he or she would have fallen over backwards.
I guess you're right. Then why was the ladder placed against the house at all?
Because someone wanted the police to investigate and discover what we've just discovered.
But why?
Well, because that would lead investigators to think that admission to Mr. Miles' room was not gained via the window above.
That doesn't make sense to me. The window was locked anyway.
Does it? Well, look here.
Now what are you looking at?
That tree. You notice how that branch extends over the ledge just below the bedroom window?
What about it? The window was locked. Dan, what are you going to do?
I'm going to climb the tree. You stay here.
Dan, no, I'm coming too.
Don't be ridiculous. Women aren't supposed to climb trees.
Dan Danfield, you come back here. That limb won't hold you.
Don't shout so, Miss Fairfax. I don't want to be caught up in this tree.
Oh, you don't? Well, how do you think that I... Oh.
What was that? Rusty! Hey, this limb is breaking. Doggone it, I'm falling. Rusty! Hey!
Now, just a minute, Mr. Officer of the Law. I got to see Dr. Danfield.
Well...
Never mind, don't say it. I'm going to see him just the same.
Well...
I guess you don't know who I am, eh? Me, I'm a Mario Consoletti. You ever hear of me, eh?
Well, no.
You very funny fellow, Mr. Officer of the Law. All you say is, well. What's the matter? You don't speak English like me?
Well...
There you go again. Well. That doctor must have get himself in another pickle, man. No. You stay here, Mr. Officer of the Law. I'll speak some other. Hey, Doctor! Doctor, that's you? This is me, Mario, Doctor.
Mario, over here.
Hey, what's going on around here? Who chopped down that tree?
Mario, Dan's under that tree.
What's that? The doctor hiding under the tree? What's this all about?
Mario, get me out of here.
The doctor. Okay, doctor, don't worry. I'll fix you up.
Be a little careful, Mario.
That's all right.
All didn't do me any good.
Yeah, you fell out of the tree, huh, Doc? Yeah, very funny. Hey, maybe you got a shot or two.
No, I didn't get shot. The branch started to break and he missed. There, I'm all right. Where's Rusty?
Dan, over here.
Rusty, you all right?
Oh, sure, she's all right, Doc. When a woman can talk, she's all right.
Now, let's not try to be funny at a time like this, Mario.
Me, funny?
What happened, Rusty?
Somebody came up behind me and hit me. I went out like a light.
Yes, and then he shot at me. Well, I saw where he went. Rusty, you go back to the house now.
No, I'm going with you.
Oh, Rusty, sometimes you try me. Well, this is no time to argue. Mario, will you pick up the flashlight?
Pick up with the flashlight. Yeah. I got him. Where we go now?
Over to that small building behind the garage. Our attacker was heading in that direction. Well, frankly, Mario, I'm glad you haven't along.
Me hopping along? That's very funny. I've been looking for you all day. You should not go off without to Mario, Doc, no?
Perhaps you're right.
Shouldn't we be a little less noisy? If the person we're after is in that building...
He isn't in the building, Miss Fairfax. I'm sure of it. Here we are. Hold that flashlight on the door, Mario.
Okay, Doc.
Well, that was easy. Throw your flashlight around inside, Mario, will you please? That's fine. Now follow me.
No. You better let me go first, Doc. If that fellow is here...
He isn't here, Mario. I've already told you that.
The place is empty, all right.
Not quite, Rusty.
What do you mean it isn't? This is nothing but a tool shed.
Hey, maybe somebody's hiding behind those boxes, huh?
There's no one hiding behind the boxes. Well, just as I thought.
That Doc, he's always a-thinking.
Yes, that settles it. Come along. We can return to the house now, and this time we can identify our murderer without asking any questions.
Well, Judith, where have you been?
Out? Looking for a man who fell out of a tree.
Oh, so you heard it too, huh? You should have seen the expression on Danfield's face when he hit the ground.
I did see it. And I saw the expression on your face when you sawed the limb halfway through this afternoon.
Snooping again, huh, Judy?
Yes, snooping again. And so were you. And so was Larry. By the way, where is Larry?
Right here, darling. Did you think I'd try to escape? I would be a sucker to do that, wouldn't I?
This is really very amusing.
We're all actually suspicious of each other, aren't we?
And if you're asking me, that's just what Danfield wants. He thinks the guilty party will break down on the strain of wondering which one of us he's going to put the finger on.
You sound worried, Vincent.
I suppose by that crack you mean I've got something to worry about.
Well, have you?
Oh, stop it. None of us killed Uncle Norman. If we keep this up, we'll be at each other's throats.
She's right, Larry. Sorry I went off the deep end.
Sure, okay. Let's forget.
Oh, here comes the great man now.
Remember, whatever he says, we stick together.
Oh, so you're back again, are you, Danfield? What's it going to be this time, a spelling bee?
Maybe he's thought up 3 more questions to ask us.
What I want to know is, who's the character you've brought along with you?
She means you, Mario.
She means me. Hey, lady, what do you mean by this character, this name you call Mario?
Never mind, Mario. Now, if you have all finished with your remarks, I'll ask Officer Moriarty to arrest the guilty party, and we'll be on our way.
Listen to it.
What are you going to do this time? Borrow the cop's gun?
How about the 3 questions? Don't we get to answer questions this time?
No, Mr. Kent. I can prove you killed your uncle without asking you any more questions.
I killed him?
Certainly, Mr. Kent. You killed him. I've known it all along, but it's been only within the past 5 minutes that I've been able to secure enough evidence to establish your guilt definitely.
I killed him. Vinny, did you hear what that guy said?
Yes, I heard him, Larry.
Too bad, isn't it, Larry?
Why, you...
I don't think you'll get much sympathy from your 2 cousins, Mr. Kent. You see, they've known all along that you were guilty, but they were afraid to... Mario!
Don't worry about me, Doc. I'm all ready.
You are, eh?
Well, how do you like this? Funny fellow. You wanted to know how Mario likes it? Get you. Very funny. I like this.
In a moment we return for the conclusion of our story, but first... Now for the conclusion of... Danger, Dr. Danfield.
New paragraph. I wish to mention that it was through the courtesy of Captain Otis of the police department and the able assistance of Miss Fairfax and Mario that I was availed this opportunity of studying the criminal mind under these circumstances, which... Miss Fairfax, I'm not through.
I'll say you're not. And if you don't tell that lecture class of yours how you knew how the murderer got into Norman Miles' room, I'll write it in myself.
Miss Fairfax.
I mean it.
Well, I believe you do. Well, the murderer climbed the tree to the ledge and got in through the window.
How could he? The window was locked. Judith Nelson swears she unlocked it when she opened it that morning.
Miss Nelson only thought she unlocked the window.
What?
Yes, you see, Larry Kent had loosened the hasp earlier in the day so that when Mr. Miles locked his window at night, the lever slid over the catch instead of under it.
Dan. Then, of course, Mr. Miles didn't lock his window, but thought he had.
That's right. Kent later entered the room through the window and strangled his uncle. However, the next day, the problem of tightening the hasp without detection.
But you established that all 3 of the suspects had been together all day.
Yes, which meant that Mr. Kent had to wait until nightfall to tighten the hasp back into place and to remove his fingerprints.
And it was Kent who shot at you and then ran toward the tool house.
Yes, he wanted to return the screwdriver. He didn't want anyone to find out that, tighten the hasp.
But how did you know it was Larry Kent?
I saw him when I was falling out of the tree.
Oh. Then you didn't know.
Oh, yes, I did, Miss Fairfax. I knew he was guilty all the time because of my knowledge regarding the workings of the human mind.
I see. Dan?
Yes, Rusty?
Do you, by any chance, know what I'm thinking of right now?
Indeed I do, Rusty. Lift your chin a little higher, please.
Danger, Dr. Danfield. As our story opens, we find Dr. Danfield, authority on crime psychology, and his pretty young secretary, Rusty Fairfax, on a train which is heading toward the fashionable resort town of Cranston in upper New York State.
Wake up, Dan. It's 8:30. We're almost in Cranston.
Oh, hello, Rusty. Did you have a nice sleep?
How could anyone sleep in these club chairs? I didn't even try. I've been worrying.
Worrying? Worrying about what?
You.
Me?
Come, my dear. You know there's no need to worry about me.
This time there is. Dan, I can't understand your interest in a woman who's afraid she's going to shoot her own husband. There are lots of women who shoot their husbands every day.
It isn't quite as common as that, Rusty, but I agree with your views, generally speaking. Here, I'll get our suitcases down.
And why this sudden departure from New York following a telephone call with Nola Jerrolds?
There's an unusual aspect of the case I neglected to mention to you. There. Nola Jerrolds suffers frequently from spells of amnesia.
What's that unusual? A lot of women do.
It will be unusual if Victor Jerrold, Nola's husband, is one day found dead and his wife is accused of murdering.
Oh, that seems pretty far-fetched.
Now, here we are. Let's go. It isn't far-fetched at all, Rusty. Nola Jerrold admits a desire to kill her husband, and she also admits being a victim of amnesia.
So what?
Well, suddenly Victor Jerrold is murdered. Nola can't remember where she was at the time. Now, the real murderer takes advantage of the opportunity to pin the crime on Nola. Well, Cranston seems to be nothing more than a whistle stop.
That sounds like a situation right out of a detective story. Before you go any further, let me ask you some questions.
Of course. Here, let's see if we can find a cab.
What if Victor Jerrold isn't found murdered? What if Nola Jerrold does remember where she was? What if there isn't any real murderer who tries to pin the crime on her?
Oh, I see what you mean, Rusty. In other words, if Victor isn't found murdered, then there can't be a murderer. Well, I agree. However, I have some news for you, Rusty.
Oh?
Yes, Victor Jerrold was found dead 3 days ago. Here we are.
Taxi, folks. Drive you anywhere in town for $1.
That's fair enough. Hop in, Rusty. Yeah, there's your dollar, driver. Take us to the Victor Jerrold home, will you?
Okay, mister.
Dan, was Victor Jerrold shot?
Yes, there was a bullet hole in the back of his head. The gun with which he was shot has not yet been found.
Well, why didn't you tell me?
Nola Jerrold, his wife, was suffering from an attack of amnesia at the time. She can't remember where she was. She has no witnesses to prove it wasn't she who committed the crime.
Well, for goodness sake, and all the time I thought
Local police chief, Walt Ulrich, called this morning and asked if I'd come up and do what I could. Yeah, Chief Ulrich is a friend who kept notice. Naturally, I said I would.
But why?
For several reasons, Rusty. First, before Victor Jerrold was found murdered, Nola called me and told her side of the story. And second, since Chief Ulrich is a friend of Captain Otis, I could hardly turn down his request.
And what's the third reason?
Curiosity, my dear. I have a theory. I also have a list and description of 4 people who Chief Ulrich believes had good motives to murder Victor Jerrold. Now, if my theory is correct, I'll be able to identify the murderer within an hour after we arrive. In a moment, we'll return for the second act of Danger, Dr. Danfield, but first... Now back to Michael Dunne for the second act of Danger, Dr. Danfield.
Here's Avery now. Where in the deuce have you been?
Oh, don't get excited, Peter. I haven't been trying to run away. Look, there's a car coming down the road. Nothing to worry about, probably just the station taxi.
More than likely it's that Danfield person, the detective that Chief Ehrlich said he was sending up.
Oh, I hope so, Peggy. I don't know how much more of this I can stand.
There, darling, it can't last much longer. I'm going to have another talk with Ulrich tomorrow. It's cruel to expose you to this ordeal.
I don't see that it's any more cruel for Nola than it is for Avery and me. I don't get the idea we're enjoying being held prisoners here while a lot of detectives try to pin a murder charge on us.
If you didn't kill Victor, Peggy, there's no need for you to be concerned.
Yeah, that goes for you, too, Pete. As a matter of fact, it goes for all of us. The one who acts the most worried will probably turn out to be the murderer.
Oh, that's not fair, Avery. All of you have an alibi. You've had plenty of chance to establish that alibi. 3 days, in fact. What about me? I don't even know where I was. It might have been I who shot Victor.
Oh, of course it wasn't you, darling. It's absurd even to think such a thing.
What's absurd about it? To me, it makes sense.
If my opinion means anything, it makes sense to me, too. Nola was always saying she hated Vic enough to kill him. Her subconscious mind must have reacted while
That's
she
enough,
was...
Peg. What are you trying to do, cover up your own guilt?
My guilt? Oh, come, Peter. You must be pretty desperate for something to say to make a remark like that.
Really? And why do you think Chief Ulrich ordered you to stay here unless he thinks you might be guilty?
I've been wondering about that. There's only one answer. You must have told him about the trouble Vic and I had been having.
Well, certainly I did. I'd be a fool to deny knowledge of it. Ulrich knew that you and Victor were considering dissolving your partnership, and he knew that you, Avery, would be ruined financially if this came about.
Fine friend you turned out to be. I suppose you told him also that Peg and I were the types of people who would commit murder to prevent financial ruin?
No. Ulrich figured that out for himself. Which reminds me, who told him about the shooting incident down in the summer house?
Oh, I did, Peter.
Nola. Why?
I had to, darling. He kept questioning me. I knew he'd find out from either Peg or Avery. They both saw what happened that night. I had to tell him.
This is rich. It really is.
For heaven's sake, Avery, what's so funny?
I was just wondering what this guy Danfield will say when he finds out what he stepped into. Here are the four of us, all trying to pin this murder onto the others. All of us have motives. All of us had the opportunity. I'm telling you, the guy will have to be a wizard if he puts his finger on the guilty party. Well, Maxwell, as soon as Miss Fairfax completes our notes... Oh, here she is now. Come in, Miss Fairfax. This is Mr. and Mrs. Avery Maxwell.
How do you do?
Miss Fairfax. Have you completed your notes, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, I've written everything down.
Fine. Now then, there are our other two suspects.
Look here, Danfield. Must you refer to us as suspects? After all, it's rather cold-blooded.
Murder is even more cold-blooded, Wade. Are you feeling better, Mrs. Jerrolds?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm quite all right now, thank you.
Good. Oh, by the way, I want you to meet my secretary, Mr. Wade and Mrs. Jerrolds, Miss Fairfax.
How do you do?
Now then, let's proceed. Mrs. Jerrolds, frankly, you're the one in whom I'm most interested. Now, as I understand it, you'd threatened to kill your husband on several occasions.
Oh, no. No, you mustn't believe that. I had said that I hated him enough to kill him, but I didn't threaten.
And why do you admit making such a statement? An ordinary person would realize that such an admission would immediately arouse suspicion.
If the police learned from someone else that she'd made such statements, it would be a lot worse, wouldn't it? I think Nola did exactly right.
Oh, do you, Wade? You're in love with Mrs. Jerrolds, aren't you?
Yes. Nola and I love each other. There's no point in pretending we don't.
Well, that's sensible. Mrs. Jerrolds, how long did your spell of amnesia last?
3 days.
And during that time, you had no idea where you were?
None at all.
I see. But since then, you've been told that you spent all of your time in bed.
Why, yes. Bessie, our housekeeper, realized what was happening and called Dr. Talmage from the village. He assigned a nurse to take care of me.
Mm-hmm. Was the nurse with you all of the time?
Well, no. No, she slept in a room across the hall.
And you think you could have crept out of bed, gone to the summer house, and shot your husband?
I could have. It's terrible to think of.
Yes, I can understand how you feel. Well, this may lead to some very interesting conclusions. Now, about the shooting incident that took place in the summer house 3 weeks ago. You were, I understand, all present? Yes, we were all there. We all saw what happened. The police know all about it. Nothing about that'll help you. I think there is, Maxwell. Good deal, in fact. Will one of you be kind enough to tell me exactly what took place?
Oh, this is getting tiresome. Does anybody mind if I find a good detective story to read?
Well, I'm sorry you're not as entertained as you hoped to be, Mrs. Maxwell. Well, which one of you is going to tell us about the shooting?
I suppose it's up to me, since I was more involved than anyone. It was I who fired the shot, you know.
Yes, we do know. Proceed, will you, please?
Well, Nola and I had agreed to meet in the summer house shortly after dark. Nola arrived first. She didn't know that Victor knew of our plans and had gone there ahead of us.
Peter? Peter, are you here? Peter? Victor!
Well. So you couldn't wait until we got back to town.
Oh, Victor, stop acting like the injured husband. You know very well it doesn't make a speck of difference to you where I meet Peter or when or how often.
That's where you're wrong, my sweet. It makes a whole lot of difference.
Oh, don't tell me you're jealous, darling. I couldn't stand it.
Jealous of you? Are you serious? Why, if you took a nosedive off the Empire State Building tomorrow, I'd be the happiest man in the world.
I'm perfectly aware of how you feel toward me, Victor. Please don't go over it again.
I'll do more than keep reminding you of what a cheat you are if you insist on a rendezvous with your boyfriend while he's a guest in my house.
Oh, stop pretending it makes any difference. You've told me 100 times you didn't care what I did.
I've told you 100 times I didn't care what you did so long as it didn't affect my business and my reputation.
Oh.
I'm going to Congress next fall, and I'm not going to let you stop me.
I don't like your attitude, Victor.
That's tough. Why, you haven't even the decency to respect the agreement we made. You haven't
Victor?
You're just no good, Nola. You're rotten all the way through.
Oh, I hate you, Victor. I hate you so much I could kill you.
Good. It's a pity we didn't reach this understanding a long time ago. It would have saved us both a lot of trouble. But since now my career in politics...
Oh, your career in politics. That's all I've heard ever since I married you. Your career in politics. Oh, what a fool I was not to have realized that that's all you cared about, dreamed about, lived for. Everything you ever did was to gain a selfish end. You married me because you thought my social position would give you prestige.
All right, that's enough. Quit trying to sell yourself the idea you're anything but a...
What?
Well, nice going, baby.
That caught me right across the mouth, you lousy little cheat.
Stop it! Stop calling me that! Oh, I hate you! I hate you!
Hey, you little wildcat!
I'll kill you, Victor Gerald! I'll kill you!
All right, Gerald. Leave her alone.
Victor, I'll kill you!
Shut up! Why, you dirty rat hitting a woman. I'll kill you.
Come on, Wade, if you want some of the same.
Do you think you can lick this?
Well, you always carry a gun, Wade, in case someone should call you a rat?
That does it, Gerald. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Get ready to die.
Hey, you guys, what's going on here? Pete, put down that gun. Place down that gun, you fool.
Leave me alone, Avery. I'm going to kill him. Well, that's what happened. Avery knocked the gun up just as I pulled the trigger. But I don't see that it's going to help you any.
Oh, quite the contrary, Mr. Wade.
What I can't understand is why someone wasn't arrested if the police knew about that little incident.
Victor didn't want the publicity. He's got a lot of influence. It wasn't hard to keep the thing quiet.
And now for all his pains, he's dead.
He deserved to die. He was horrible.
That's a matter of opinion, Mrs. Gerald. It strikes me as rather strange that only 3 weeks after this attempt was made on Victor Gerald's life, we find him entertaining the very same group of people.
Victor was like that. He deliberately planned this weekend to allay any possible suspicions that outsiders might have.
Oh, that sounds reasonable. Oh, Mrs. Gerald, do you mind if Miss Fairfax and I search your room?
Why, no, if you think it necessary.
If it's the lethal weapon you're hoping to find, Danfield, you needn't waste your time. The police have already gone over the house and grounds with a fine-tooth comb.
Oh, no. It isn't the lethal weapon I hope to find, Mr. Wade.
No? What then?
I hope to find something that will prove that Mrs. Gerald didn't have amnesia during the time her husband was being murdered. You see, I think she's lying, and for a very definite reason. In a moment we return to Danger Dr. Danfield, but first... Now back to Michael Dunne for the third act of... Danger, Dr. Danfield. Yeah, let's go in, Rusty. This is Mrs. Gerald's room.
Dan, you were guessing when you said you thought Mrs. Jerrolds was only pretending to have amnesia, weren't you?
I never guess. You know that, Rusty. Oh, it's rather an attractive room, isn't it?
But how could you possibly know she was pretending?
Mrs. Jerrold was too anxious to have us believe that she was a victim of amnesia. It seemed to me rather convenient that the attack should come on at the exact time her husband was being murdered.
But if Dr. Talmadge
Dr. Talmadge didn't say, Rusty. It was Peter Wade who said. The housekeeper summoned the doctor and stated that Mrs. Jerrold was having a recurrence of amnesia.
But Dr. Talmadge would know, wouldn't he?
Probably, if he made a thorough examination.
You don't think he did?
I think this. Mrs. Jerrold had possibly had an attack of amnesia at some time or another. She probably recovered with no ill effects. Now, when someone reports that she's again the victim of the same disease, why should the doctor become suspicious?
No, perhaps you're right.
I think I am. How does a doctor or anyone else determine whether or not a person is suffering from amnesia anyway? Let's look out here on the balcony.
Well, there must be some way of telling.
Only by clever questioning, I should think. Wow.
What do you see?
That lighted building over there would be the summer house, wouldn't you say?
Yes, that's a summer house. Dan, you don't think...
Possibly, Rusty. Possibly. The place is in direct line with this room, isn't it?
Yes, and this room's on the ground floor.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a rifle or a revolver bullet that killed Victor Jerrold?
A revolver. It would take a high-powered rifle and an excellent marksman to hit a target at this distance. No. We're wasting time in that theory, Rusty. Come on, let's go back inside and look around some more.
If we could find the revolver, it would help a lot.
I doubt that the lethal weapon will ever be found. Police made a thorough search. Anyway, we won't need it.
Won't need it? What do you mean by that?
I think we can solve this crime without the revolver. Well, that seems to be Mrs. Jerrold's diary.
I hope you're not going to read it. Women consider their diaries private property.
That's what makes it strange that Mrs. Jerrold should leave her diary here in plain view. She wants us to read it.
But, Dan, why should she?
Let's look at the entries she made for October 24th, 5th, and 6th, and possibly we'll find the answer. Let's see here. October 22nd, 23rd. Here we are. October 24th. Wow, just as I thought. The page is blank.
How about the following page?
Let's see. The next entry is October 27th. Let's see, it says, Dear Diary, for the past 3 days, my mind has been a blank. What a terrible experience not to be able to remember one thing of what happened in your life.
Well, then she did have amnesia.
No, Rusty, I don't think she did. But she went to great lengths to have everyone believe she did. Why?
Don't ask me. Besides, if she had any ulterior motive, why would she keep saying that it might have been she who shot her husband while her mind was a blank?
Because...
Well, by George.
Now what?
Rusty, that's the answer. Of course it is. Why didn't I think of it before?
Think of what before? What's the answer to what?
Rusty, you're practically a genius for thinking of it. Come on now. There's something in the summer house that'll probably answer our problem. And I'll bet $1 no one's thought to look for it.
I'd still like to know what it was I thought of that was so wonderful.
I've already told you, my dear. It was you who remembered that Nola Jerrold kept reminding everyone that it might have been she who shot her husband.
Which means absolutely nothing as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, doesn't it? Well, perhaps it will in a few minutes. Here we are.
Oh, say, isn't it cute? This isn't a summer house. It's a complete cottage of its own.
Victor Jerrold, I understand, spent most of his time here after he and his wife became estranged. Oh, no. Leave the door open, will you please, Rusty?
But if anyone sees us...
That's exactly what I want, for the guilty party to see us. As a matter of fact, if he or she doesn't, I'll have to explain what we're doing down here.
But why?
You'll see. Now then, according to the story Peter Wade told us, Jerrold must have been standing about right here when Avery and Peggy Maxwell came charging across the porch and into the room.
When? What are you talking about?
The shooting episode that happened 3 weeks ago. Well, let me see. Victor struck his wife and she fell. Peter must have been standing by the door. The gun in his hand was knocked up. Yes, there it is.
There's what?
The bullet hole that was made when Wade's gun exploded. See it up there near the ceiling?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, now we know that Peter Wade was telling the truth. But how in the world are you going to connect the shooting incident of 3 weeks ago with Victor Jerrold's murder 3 days ago?
I'm not, Rusty. The murderer is going to do it for us. Come on, let's go back to the house. I want to make a phone call to Chief Ulrich. Then I think we can clean this whole thing up. Yes, that's the way I see it, Chief Ulrich. What do you think? Yes, I quite agree. Under the circumstances, it'll be our only chance. The carpenter? No. I doubt that'll be necessary. No, I can handle it all right myself. What? Well, yes, if you'd have an officer nearby, I'd appreciate it very much. Well, thank you, Chief. Goodbye. Oh, hello, Mr. Wade. Come in.
Is that you talking on the telephone?
Why, yes, why?
I hope what you had to say wasn't of a private nature.
Oh?
I just saw Avery listening in on your conversation on the extension phone in the kitchen.
Oh, really? Well, it won't matter a great deal. What I had to say to Chief Ulrich wasn't particularly important.
Ulrich? Hasn't he given up on this case yet?
Well, naturally not. As a matter of fact, he and another officer will be out here in about an hour.
An hour?
Yes. Is there something wrong, Mr. Wade?
No. Danfield, there's something I want to ask you.
I'll go right ahead.
Suppose it were proven that it was Nola who shot Victor. I mean, when she was suffering from amnesia.
Well?
Could they do anything to her?
I'm afraid you're asking the wrong person, Mr. Wade. I'm neither a detective nor a lawyer. I haven't the remotest idea whether they do anything to Mrs. Jerrold or not.
Oh, it's driving me crazy. I'm in love with the girl, Danfield. Certainly she couldn't be blamed for doing something that she knew nothing about.
Oh, do you believe there's a chance that Mrs. Jerrold will be proven guilty?
I don't know. I wish I did. You see, she'd made threats, and the idea might have been in her subconscious mind. Oh, I don't know what to do.
Well, I propose that you do absolutely nothing until Chief Ulrich arrives. Oh, by the way, have you a jackknife I could borrow?
A jackknife? Yes, a small one. It's nothing much more than a penknife.
Oh, that'll do admirably. Thank you. I'll return it within an hour.
Okay, no hurry. But, what the heck are you going to do with a jackknife?
Do? Oh, nothing. Nothing important. Now, I must find Miss Fairfax and ask her to join me in the summer house. Well, I think we have the stage pretty well set, don't you, Rusty?
I only hope it works.
Oh, it'll work, I'm sure of it.
Dan, look. The lights just went out in the summer house.
Oh, so they did. Well, that means our little scheme is working, doesn't it?
Working too well. I hope you're not going in there without a light.
Well, why not? Darkness will prove an able ally for what I have in mind.
What you have in mind? You mean that you're going to do something you haven't told me about?
You just wait, you'll see. Here we are.
It's certainly dark enough in here.
Just to make sure, I'll try the light switch. Yeah, just as I thought. Someone threw the main switch. Oh, close the door, Rusty, will you? Why not on a match?
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing seems to be disturbed.
Why should it be?
Let's see now. Yeah, it's probably the best spot will be over here near the back door.
Best spot for what? What's going to happen?
Oh, didn't I tell you, Rusty? Here, wait till I light another match, will you? There. Well, the murderer is going to appear here in a very few minutes, and we're going to capture him.
We're what?
I'm going to blow out this match, open the rear door, and suggest in a normal tone that we're leaving. And I'm going to close the door, and from that point on, no talking, please.
But, Dan,
Don't worry, my dear. I'll take care of everything. Well, Miss Fairfax, I guess we've done all we can here. Let's go back to the house, shall we?
All right.
Nice work, Rusty. Now find your way to the divan and make yourself comfortable.
Where are you going to be?
Right here near the door, naturally.
But, Dan, suppose...
Stop worrying, Rusty. Go on over to the divan.
All right.
Now, we'll just sit here and wait.
Dan?
Yes?
How much longer do we have to wait?
Not long, I'm sure. Shh, be quiet.
Dan, there's someone at the front door.
Well, this rather complicates things. I better... Oh?
Dan, there's someone in the room.
Keep quiet so he can't locate you.
All right, friend. You might as well give up. The place is completely surrounded by the police. It's no use, I say. You haven't a chance.
Danny, oh!
So that's your game, isn't it?
What's going on in here?
Officer, get out your flashlight. Grab him.
I got him. Well,
In a moment, we'll return for the conclusion of our story, but first... Now for the conclusion of... Danger, Dr. Danfield. Rusty, you all right?
I guess so. What happened?
Don't worry, Doc. I got him. Pick up my flashlight and let's see who it is.
Right.
Keep your hands off me. Steady now, me lad.
Here we are. Well,
Dan, it's Peter Wade.
which isn't too surprising. All right, officer, put the handcuffs on him. Chief Ulrich will be here any minute.
I'll just do that. Keep your hands off me. You're not going to put any handcuffs on me.
Come on, Rusty. Let's get out of here. Our work seems to be done. Well, come on in, Rusty. It's good to get back to the peace and quiet of the study, eh?
Yeah, I'll say it is.
Here, I'll touch a match to the kindling. Oh, there's some shadow marking on the cupboard. How about it?
That's a good idea. I'll get it.
There we are. Now then, a glass of wine, and we'll go over our notes.
Right. There's still a lot of things I'm in the dark about.
Such as wondering how I knew the murderer would reveal his identity by coming out to summer house?
That's the big question.
So here's the answer. Nola, Jerrold, and Peter Wade had planned the murder of Nola's husband very carefully. For example, Peter deliberately planned the shooting episode 3 weeks ago because he reasoned that, no one would think he'd been fool enough to murder the man he previously attacked.
He figured that we'd all reason that his motive was too obvious.
Right. Now then, both Nola and Peter made continued subtle attempts to cast suspicion on Nola.
Why?
Well, they hoped that everything else failing, the police would reason that it must have been she who murdered her husband while she was suffering from amnesia.
And if she did, without realizing it, she couldn't be blamed.
Well, that's what they hoped, and they were probably right.
But how did you know the murderer would come to the summer house?
Because I let everyone know what I planned to do. I told Chief Ulrich that I intended to remove the bullet from the hole it made in the wall during the shooting episode of 3 weeks ago.
But how would that prove anything?
Well, by comparing that bullet, which Wade admitted he fired, with a bullet which was removed from Victor Jerrold, it could easily be established that the two bullets came from the same gun.
Oh, well, Dan, that's right, isn't it?
Of course. Now, if Wade had wanted to risk it, he still could have sat back and made us prove that he fired the second shot, but he didn't know how much else we knew. And if he could gain possession of the bullet buried in the wall, he'd be completely safe. See? Oh, some more wine, Rusty?
Oh, yes, thanks. And then we'd better get on with the lecture,
The lecture, my dear, can wait.